I see that you're using quite a profound clone technique. However, I'm rather curious. How much of your power could you possibly still be retaining in your current state? Han Li mused with a peculiar expression as he appraised Patriarch Wu Gu with blue light flashing in his eyes. What do you mean by that? Patriarch Wu Gu's pupils contracted slightly upon hearing this, and he finally spoke for the first time in a voice that was extremely raspy and unused, as if it had been countless years since he had last spoken. My spirit eye ability allows me to clearly see everything in a radius of thousands of kilometers around me. Even though you're using a treasure to conceal your current condition and you're able to move like a normal person, you can't hide your necrosed muscle tissues from me. How did you end up like this? Was a restriction placed upon you, or did you willingly become like this? Patriarch Wu Gu's pupils contracted even further upon hearing this, and his hands had also balled up into tight fists within his sleeves. Han Li had spoken in a voice that was clearly audible to all of the Grand Ascension stage beings nearby, and Fairy Huazai's expression changed drastically as she hurriedly yelled, "What are you doing, Wu Gu? Stop listening to his senseless rambling and kill him." Immediately thereafter, the giant ring around the extreme mountain began to glow brightly at her behest, then transformed into a vast expanse of translucent sand that instantly enveloped the entire mountain, forming a massive translucent ball that hovered in midair in a completely still manner. She then flew over to Patriarch Wu Gu as a streak of light, before aiming a vicious glare at Han Li. A hint of mockery seemed to flash through Patriarch Wu Gu's eyes as he turned to glance at Fairy Huazai. "Rest assured, his words won't be able to affect me. Sorry to disappoint you, fellow Taoist, but no one did this to me. Something went wrong while I was practicing a cultivation art, and I had no choice but to become like this in order to save my own life. Now then, that's enough chit-chat. Let's continue." As soon as his voice trailed off, he took a step forward, and his body instantly split up into two, then into four. In the blink of an eye, around a dozen identical projections had been manifested all around Han Li, and even more projections were taking shape before converging toward the center. It was as if over 100 people were charging toward Han Li at once. Fairy Huazai's eyes lit up immediately upon seeing this, and she quickly made a grabbing motion as countless specks of light surged out of her body, then converged to form an antiquated long blade that was around 10 feet in length in her hand. The blade was slashed toward Han Li, who was immediately struck by the feeling that the space around him had tightened. An incredible weight seemed to have descended upon him, making him very sluggish and preventing him from taking evasive measures. At this point, the Patriarch Wu Gu's gray clones also reached him in a flash before swinging their arms through the air, unleashing countless green claw projections that grabbed toward all of Han Li's vital regions. However, Han Li remained completely unfazed, and he let loose a low roar as purplish golden light erupted out of his body alongside countless silver runes. A series of silver formations quickly took shape, forming a suit of silver armor that encased his entire body, repelling all of the oncoming green claw projections amid a string of crisp clangs. At the same time, the giant ape swelled to several times its original size, and a layer of purplish golden scales appeared all over its boy, while a short golden horn emerged on its head amid a flash of black light. It then pulled its hand apart violently, and the space around Han Li immediately blurred and warped, as if he had just freed himself from something. At the same time, the giant blade in Fairy Huazai's grasp exploded into grains of sand amid a dull thump. A hint of astonishment appeared on her face upon seeing this, and right at this moment, Han Li made a hand seal, following which bolts of thick golden lightning erupted out of his body in all directions. In the blink of an eye, the space within an acre of area around Han Li had been entirely filled by golden lightning. Close to 100 of the gray figures nearest to him were caught off guard and destroyed by the golden lightning, and only around a dozen managed to survive before hurriedly converging to revert back to Patriarch Wu Gu's true body again. A cold smile appeared on Han Li's face upon seeing this, and he made a hand seal before opening his mouth to release a silver fireball with a diameter of around 10 feet. The fireball then instantly transformed into a silver fire raven that was over 100 feet in length before flapping its wings and flying toward Fairy Huazai. At the same time, Han Li made a grabbing motion toward Patriarch Wu Gu, and a burst of enormous invisible power instantly descended upon him. Patriarch Wu Gu's heart jolted slightly as he swept a sleeve through the air to release a bead that was enshrouded within green qi. The bead flew up into the air before swelling to the size of a wagon wheel in the blink of an eye, then struck the tremendous force descending upon him amid an earth-shattering boom. A green sun instantly appeared above Patriarch Wu Gu, and powerful shockwaves unfurled all around him. Currently, the green bead was radiating scintillating light, and countless faint golden runes had appeared on its surface. Han Li was rather surprised that the power of his grab had been nullified by a mere bead, but he then immediately lashed out like lightning with his other hand. Spatial fluctuations erupted above Patriarch Wu Gu, and countless arcs of golden lightning appeared before forming a giant purplish golden hand that struck the green bead down below amid a rumbling thunderclap. The bead was instantly enveloped by the golden lightning, and all of the runes on its surface were quickly destroyed, while the bead itself began to slowly descend while trembling incessantly. Patriarch Wu Gu harumphed coldly upon seeing this before pointing a finger upward, and the bead immediately turned a golden color. At the same time, a light barrier was conjured up on its surface, and the bead managed to stabilize itself even in the face of the ferocious barrage of golden lightning. At this moment, Han Li suddenly took a stride forward, instantly covering a distance of over 1,000 feet before appearing right in front of Patriarch Wu Gu, then thrust a giant fist viciously toward him. An explosive boom rang out overhead, and a burst of tremendous force that was around twice as powerful as the previous one came crashing down from above, forcing the golden bead to slowly descend once again. Patriarch Wu Gu's eyes narrowed slightly upon seeing this, and it seemed that he was about to unleash some type of ability, but right at this moment, a cry for help suddenly rang out in the distance. "Get over here, Wu Gu, I can't hold on much longer." Fairy Huazai's voice was extremely shrill and urgent, and she seemed to be utterly horrified. Letter 1D627, letter 1D633, letter 1D626, letter 212F, letter 1D4CC, letter 1D626, letter 1D4B8, letter 1D630, letter 1D4C2. Patriarch Wu Gu's heart stirred slightly as he hurriedly cast his gaze in that direction. At this moment, Fairy Huazai was situated within a sea of silver flames, with a fire raven flying incessantly around her. She was hiding inside an extremely thick barrier of translucent sand, but the sand barrier was quickly being melted away by the scorching silver flames. These flames were far more fearsome than she had anticipated. Not only was this sand barrier unable to withstand their incredible heat, the 7 or 8 other defensive treasures she had summoned had also been melted away in mere moments. Furthermore, the silver fire raven was releasing bursts of restriction fluctuations as it flew around her, sealing the entire space nearby and preventing her from being able to get away. Now that the sand barrier was also close to failing, she had no choice but to call for help. Patriarch Wu Gu hesitated slightly upon seeing this, but a decisive look then quickly appeared in his eyes. He let loose a loud roar, and his body suddenly exploded into hundreds of projections that sped away in all directions. Han Li's expression changed slightly upon seeing this, and he lashed out with a giant hand like lightning, but was only able to eradicate less than half of the projections. The rest of the projections quickly rushed over to the sea of silver flames, then fused as one to form Patriarch Wu Gu's true body again. He quickly made a hand seal, and a layer of golden flames appeared over his body before he plunged into the sea of silver flames without any hesitation. A ball of golden flames flashed through the fiery silver sea in a wraith-like manner, appearing beside Fairy Huazai after just a few flashes. Fairy Huazai was ecstatic to see this, and she immediately pointed a finger at the sand barrier, which opened up to grant Patriarch Wu Gu entry. "Hurry, my star sand won't be able to last much longer. Only your bonded true flame can oppose these spirit flames," Fairy Huazai urged as she stared intently at the giant fire raven attacking the sand barrier. At this moment, Han Li also began to make his way toward that direction, and that was making her very anxious. "All right, withdraw your star sand, and I'll release my bonded true flame," Patriarch Wu Gu replied in an expressionless manner, following which a burst of golden flames emerged to envelop his entire arm, which was suddenly thrust toward Fairy Huazai at an incredible speed. Chapter 2374, Retreat. However, Fairy Huazai suddenly twisted away as if she had already anticipated this, then lashed out with a hand of her own, which was covered in translucent sand. The two palms clashed amid a dull thump, and both of them were forced back several steps from the force of the impact. "I knew you would try something like this. Looks like I still haven't punished you enough. I'm going to." Fairy Huazai's voice abruptly cut off as her furious expression suddenly transitioned into one of horror, and she shuddered as a thin azure hand suddenly protruded out of the front of her chest. The hand was locked around Fairy Huazai's nascent soul, which was struggling desperately with an agonized look on its face. Patriarch Wu Gu appeared before Fairy Huazai's nascent soul in a wraith-like manner, and appraised it in silence. At the same time, spatial fluctuations erupted behind Fairy Huazai's body, and a barely visible azure figure emerged. Almost at the exact same moment, the fiery golden giant that was opposing the other extreme mountain abruptly vanished on the spot. As a result, the extreme mountain was free to crash down from above, and the entire sea of golden flames was instantly snuffed out. Fairy Huazai's nascent soul struggled for a moment longer to no avail, and it finally gave up in despair as a resentful look appeared on its face. I didn't think you'd already mastered the spirit substitution technique, but don't celebrate too early. If I'm going to die here, then I'm going to take you down with me. Don't forget that there's a bonded restriction planted in your body. Is that so? If that's what you were counting on, then I can tell you right now that I'd already dispelled your restrictions several years ago. As for why I allowed you to do as you please up until now, it's all for that thing up your sleeve, Patriarch Wu Gu said as a peculiar look flashed through his eyes. That's impossible, Arg. The nascent soul's anguished howl was abruptly cut off as the azure figure burst into golden flames, before pouncing forward to envelop both Fairy Huazai's body and her nascent soul, instantly incinerating both into ashes. Patriarch Wu Gu then immediately reached forward in an expressionless manner, and an inky black formation plate flew out of the golden flames before landing in his grasp. He carefully inspected the formation plate for a short while before blowing on it, and the formation plate began to disintegrate at a rate that was discernible to the naked eye, fading into a cloud of black smoke in the end. Patriarch Wu Gu then opened his mouth to inhale the cloud of black smoke, and a relieved look flashed through his eyes after he briefly inspected his own internal condition. After that, the golden flames reverted back into an azure humanoid figure. A dull thump rang out as the sand barrier was finally completely melted away, but the surrounding silver flames suddenly fell completely still, and even the giant fire raven was hovering in midair in a stationary manner with its wings folded away. Only then did Patriarch Wu Gu cast his gaze toward Han Li, who was also appraising him with a peculiar expression. I don't know what happened between you and your Dao companion, but I can roughly guess some of the details. Do you still intend to continue this battle on your own? Of course not. In my current state, Taoist Tian Ding's cultivation arts won't be of any use to me. On top of that, I can tell that you haven't even unleashed half of your full power yet up to this point, so it would be nothing short of suicidal for me to continue this battle. Please excuse me, I'll be taking my leave now, Patriarch Wu Gu replied in an indifferent manner, and the azure humanoid figure immediately fused into his body, upon which he sped away as a streak of light, vanishing into the distance after just a few flashes. Han Li was rather surprised by Patriarch Wu Gu's decisive departure, but he naturally wasn't going to stop him. All of a sudden, an earth-shattering boom rang out in another direction, and Han Li turned toward that direction to find that the sea of crimson mist there had faded, revealing the Provenant's golden body and the nine-eyed blood toad. The two were facing one another from over 1,000 feet away, and the Provenant's golden body had become very dim and was missing a head and 2 arms. As for the nine-eyed blood toad, it was riddled with wounds, and only 5 of its eyes remained open, while the other 4 were all bleeding profusely. It seemed that neither side had gained the upper hand over the other. As for the other 2 battles taking place, they were still as intense as ever. A faint smile appeared on Han Li's face, yet just as he was about to fly toward the nine-eyed blood toad, it suddenly heaved a forlorn sigh. There's no need to continue this any longer, Brother Han. The 3 of us concede, and will no longer pester you and your companion. As soon as its voice trailed off, a burst of crimson mist rose up from the nine-eyed blood toad, and its injuries were quickly healed before it reverted back to its human form amid a flash of spiritual light. Han Li hesitated momentarily before also reverting back to his human form amid a flash of golden light. The other combatants had naturally already witnessed what had just happened, and despite their reluctance to do so, Taoist Qing Ping and Mistress Wan Hua could only disengage themselves from their respective battles before retreating back to Zio Ming's side with dark expressions. Are we just going to give up, Brother Zio? Mistress Wan Hua asked with an indignant expression. What else can we do? Patriarch Wu Gu and Fairy Hua Zai are no longer here. The three of us have no chance at victory, Xiao Ming replied. Taoist Qing Ping also seemed very reluctant to give up, but he didn't say anything in the end. You've gotten the better of us, fellow Taoist Han. We'll only be embarrassing ourselves further if we continue to stay here, so we'll be taking our leave now, Xiao Ming said as he cupped his fist in a salute toward Han Li before preparing to depart with Taoist Qing Ping and Mistress Wan Hua. You think you can just come and go as you please, Brother Xiao? Han Li asked with a cold smile. At this point, the giant golden crab and Fairy Ice Soul had also flew over to Han Li's side, and Fairy Ice Soul's eyes were filled with elation. Meanwhile, the giant golden crab transformed into a young Taoist priest amid a flash of silver lightning. Xiao Ming's pupils contracted slightly upon hearing this. What are you trying to say, Brother Han? Why ask a question you already know the answer to, Brother Xiao? If you want to leave, then you'll have to buy your way out of here, Han Li said. Fine, here are 3 yin blood crystals to compensate for our actions, Xiao Ming sighed as he swept a sleeve through the air, releasing a jade box toward Han Li. Han Li drew the jade box into his grasp, then inspected its contents with his spiritual sense before giving a pleased nod. The jade box was then stowed away amid a flash of spiritual light, and Xiao Ming cupped his fist in a salute again before flying away, followed closely by Taoist Qing Ping and Mistress Wan Hua. Even though they could no longer obtain Taoist Tian Ding's true inheritance, there was still some time until the closing of the Heavenly Cauldron Palace, so if they made haste, they could still obtain some treasures from some other areas. Thank you, Brother Han. If you hadn't stood up for me, I would already be dead by now, Fairy Ice Soul said with unadulterated gratitude in her voice as she extended a deep bow toward Han Li. No need for formalities, fellow Taoist Ice Soul. Even setting aside our history with one another, I would have ensured your safety on the basis that you're a fellow human Grand Ascension stage being, Han Li said with a smile, while Taoist Zai stood beside him in silence with a wooden expression. After a short conversation, the 3 of them flew toward a certain direction. Several hours later, a light formation suddenly appeared at a certain location in the centrum amid a burst of spatial fluctuations, following which Han Li's trio emerged. After quickly inspecting their surroundings, Fairy Ice Soul said, I can sense the blood spirit's approximate location. I'll use the restriction to teleport us over to her. Han Li naturally had no objections to this, and thus, Fairy Ice Soul flipped a hand over to summon a formation plate. She then cast a few incantations toward the formation plate before tossing it forward, upon which it transformed into a light formation again. The 3 of them stepped into the formation before vanishing amid a faint buzzing sound. Several hours later, the Blood Soul was situated in a pavilion, drawing a series of treasures on a wooden shelf up her sleeve when her expression suddenly changed slightly, and she promptly abandoned the remaining 2 or 3 treasures on the shelf before flying out of the pavilion as a streak of light. Letter 1D557, letter 1D42B, letter 1D41E, letter 1D556, letter 1D568, letter 1D41E, letter 1D41C, letter 1D5FC, letter 1D696. Almost at the exact same moment, spatial fluctuations erupted nearby, and a light formation carrying Han Li's trio emerged. You've finally been freed, the Blood Soul said as she appraised the mirror image of herself with a complex expression. Thank you for your hard work and for enlisting Brother Han's help. Otherwise, the 2 of us most likely would have never had a chance to reunite, Fairy Ice Soul said with a smile. Chapter 2375, Return. You are me, and I am you. There's no need to thank me. Now that you've been free, I can return to you, the Blood Soul said, and Fairy Ice Soul nodded in response before making a hand seal, upon which the bright crimson light erupted from her body. At the same time, the Blood Soul flew toward her as a ball of crimson light before vanishing into her body in a flash. Fairy Ice Soul immediately doubled over slightly as a pained look appeared on her face, and the crimson light radiating from her body brightened as countless crimson threads shot out of her skin before disintegrating into crimson mist. Only after 15 minutes had passed did the pain on her face gradually fade, and she stood up straight again. At this moment, her appearance hadn't changed in the slightest, but her disposition had undergone a subtle transformation. I see that you're an extremely renowned figure in our human race and has had extensive interactions with this Blood Soul clone of mine. It's all thanks to you that she was able to make it all the way here, Fairy Ice Soul said with a smile. Have you already absorbed all of your clone's memories? Han Li asked. It's not that simple. I've sealed most of the memories away and have only absorbed the most important parts, Fairy Ice Soul replied with a wry smile. That's a wise decision. Now that you've recovered your clone and there's nothing else in the Heavenly Cauldron Palace that can interest us, let's leave this place. I'm sure no one could have anticipated that the palace would close early, and during the unrest, we'll be able to get away safely, Han Li said as he swept a hand through the air, and Jin Tong emerged out of thin air before vanishing up his sleeve. Almost at the exact same moment, Taoist Zai also made a hand seal before disappearing into Han Li's body as an arc of silver lightning amid a faint thunderclap. All right, I'll begin right away, Fairy Ice Soul agreed. Thus, she opened her mouth to release a crimson jade badge, which she pointed a finger toward, and bursts of restriction fluctuations began to emanate from the badge. In the air above the myriad moon mountain range, a giant formation had already been set up around the giant gate that was the entrance to the Heavenly Cauldron Palace, and there were blood-bone sect disciples situated all around the formation, while two grand ascension stage beings from the blood-bone sect were seated at its center. All of a sudden, a burst of rumbling rang out from the giant gate alongside waves of energy fluctuations. The two grand ascension stage beings immediately opened their eyes, and one of them, a thin elderly man, exclaimed, "What's going on? Is the Heavenly Cauldron Palace opening earlier than usual? According to past records, it shouldn't be closing yet." He was accompanied by a short and hideous woman, who speculated, perhaps someone obtained Taoist Tian Ding's true inheritance to trigger this change. In any case, let's activate the formation first in case someone gets away during the chaos, the thin elderly man decided. That is indeed a necessary precaution to take, the woman agreed. Thus, the two of them issued an order, and the blood-bone sect disciples around them immediately activated their formation treasures. Rays of dazzling light rose up from the formation as it was activated, quickly intertwining to form a gigantic net that encompassed the entire sky. As soon as the net took shape, an astonishingly menacing aura surged through the area, as if there were a formidable army lying in ambush. The two grand ascension stage beings of the blood-bone sect were praising the giant gate with intense unblinking eyes, and all of a sudden, an earth-shattering boom rang out. The massive gate warped and blurred before abruptly exploding, and the world's origin chi scattered in all directions, while the white spatial rift was slowly sealed. Spatial fluctuations then erupted where the gate had disappeared, and two light formations appeared, from within which two groups of people emerged. One group was comprised of around 30 and 40 people, led by a brocade-robed man with a dark expression. They had only just broken through the restrictions in one of the central areas, and were about to plunder the treasures in there when they were forcibly ejected out of the Heavenly Cauldron Palace. This was naturally extremely frustrating, and explained the displeased look on the brocade-robed man's face. As for the other group, it was comprised of the 5 Zuhi clones. A hint of surprise flashed through the elderly man's eyes at the sight of the two groups. The brocade-robed man's expression changed slightly at the sight of the two grand ascension stage beings and the giant net up above, and he asked in a cold voice, "Fellow Taoist Tianju, fellow Taoist Dai Meng, I didn't expect to see you two here. What is the meaning of this?" "Ah, so you were in the Heavenly Cauldron Palace, Sect Master Feng. No wonder it was closed early. You must have reaped some significant rewards in that palace, right, Brother Feng?" The short woman chuckled. The brocade-robed man's expression darkened slightly upon hearing this. "Are you under the impression that I was the one who caused the palace to close early? Aside from you, I can't think of anyone else who could be capable of accomplishing this," the woman replied. The brocade-robed man was furious to hear this, but he didn't know how to respond. Right at this moment, the elderly man suddenly yelled, "Where do you think you're going? Are you not planning to say anything?" In that direction, the 5 Zuhi clones were slowly backing away toward the edge of the formation. "We have nothing to say. Are you going to keep us here along with Sect Master Feng?" one of the clones replied in a wooden manner. Instead of answering the question, the rainbow light flashed through the elderly man's eyes, and he sighed, "I didn't think that the vastly renowned 5 Zuhi clones would be reduced to such a sorry state. How pitiful." The clone's expression changed drastically upon hearing this. "What do you mean by that, Tianju?" "What do I mean? HMPH, you think your blood puppet body can escape the detection of my glazed illusion eyes. Why don't you reveal your true form?" the elderly man harumphed coldly. "What? Blood puppet? The short woman and the brocade-robed man both turned toward the 5 clones with alarm and wariness in their eyes upon hearing this. The clone reverted back to his wooden expression and chuckled. Hee hee, the resounding reputation of the glazed illusion eyes is truly warranted. I've already cultivated the blood god arts to such a degree, yet I still wasn't able to fool you. Immediately thereafter, a streak of crimson light shot out of the back of each clone's head, then converged to form a blurry crimson humanoid figure with shimmering green eyes that were giving off an indescribably ruthless aura. The elderly man took a deep breath and declared, "It is a well-established rule across the entire Blood Sky continent that all those who cultivate the blood god arts are to be killed." As soon as his voice trailed off, he made a hand seal before pointing a finger upward, and a rumbling thunderclap rang out as 6 bolts of crimson lighting appeared in the air before crashing down toward the 5 clones and the crimson figure. At the same time, a loud buzzing sound rang out from the entire formation, and thick pillars of light erupted into the sky all around it, creating a massive cage of light, while the gigantic net up above also began to slowly descend. A burst of cackling rang out from the crimson figure's body, and he swept a sleeve upward, releasing 6 streaks of crimson light that destroyed the 6 bolts of lightning in a flash. Immediately thereafter, countless bursts of crimson mist surged out of his body, sweeping up the 5 clones before speeding away toward the edge of the cage of light as a sea of crimson mist. The elderly man's expression darkened slightly upon seeing this, and he quickly switched to a different hand seal, upon which a white sword projection that was several thousand feet in length erupted out of his body. He then fused as one with the sword projection before hurtling directly toward the sea of crimson mist, while the short woman turned to the brocade-robed man and asked, "Sect Master Feng, that man has cultivated the blood god arts. What do you plan to do?" Letter 1D453, letter 1D4C7, letter 1D626, letter 212F, letter 1D638, letter 1D626, letter 1D450, letter 1D45C, letter 1D4C2. HMPH, there's no need to goad me, Dai Meng. All those who cultivate the blood god arts are sworn enemies of our blood Dao sects and must be killed, so of course I'm not just going to stand by and watch, the brocade-robed man harumphed coldly in response. He then instructed his disciples to release the treasures in their hands, which transformed into giant runes of different colors that began to fly erratically through the air. The brocade-robed man chanted an incantation, and the runes quickly converged along a set trajectory before rapidly intertwining, and within mere moments, a golden formation that seemed to be filled with countless sharp blades had taken shape above him. The short woman was quite pleased to see this, and she swept a sleeve through the air to summon several spirit beast bracelets. Round a dozen massive crimson doves flew out of the spirit beast bracelets, then also pounced toward the sea of crimson mist in the distance at the woman's behest. As for the giant pillars of light that seemed to be extremely far away, they began to slowly converge toward the center under the combined efforts of all of the blood-bone sect disciples, and a fierce battle ensued. Chapter 2376, Myriad Spirit Blood Seal. We've finally come out, but we still appear to be in the Myriad Moon Mountain range, Han Li remarked as he strode out of the light formation and inspected his surroundings. While preparing the teleportation formation, I had already done my best to teleport us as far away as possible. Even though we're still in the Myriad Moon Mountain range, we should be on the very outskirts, Fairy Ice Soul said as she also inspected her surroundings with unbridled excitement in her eyes. Anyone who had been trapped in a certain place for so many years would be ecstatic upon being freed. Even if someone were to detect our presence here, it would be too late for them to catch us. I'll summon Zhu Gyur and Patriarch Yueshi to this place right away. Do you have any plans, fellow Taoist Ice Soul? Are you going to return to our human race? Han Li asked. I've only just reached the Grand Ascension stage, so I'll need some time to consolidate my cultivation base, and I have to refine the treasures I just obtained. As such, I plan to cultivate for a few years in a secluded place before returning to our human race, Fairy Ice Soul replied, clearly having already thought about this. That's not a bad idea. However, news of the fact that you've obtained Taoist Tian Ding's inheritance will definitely spread very quickly, so you'll have to be careful, Han Li cautioned. Rest assured, Brother Han, I may be inept compared to you, but I'm still a Grand Ascension stage being, so I'm sure I'll be able to keep myself safe even against powerful enemies as long as I don't fall into any perilous regions, Fairy Ice Soul replied with a smile. I'm glad that you're confident in your own abilities. I'm going to stay on the Blood Sky continent for a while longer, and I may even make a trip to the Thunder Continent, so it could be a very long time until we meet again. Look after yourself in the meantime, Han Li said with a smile as he extended a parting salute. Fairy Ice Soul hurriedly returned the salute, and after also wishing Han Li well, she finally took her leave before departing as a streak of light. Once she had vanished into the distance, Han Li made a grabbing motion to summon a silver talisman, which he gently waved through the air, upon which it immediately disintegrated into a plume of smoke. After that, Han Li descended onto a certain mountain and began to meditate under a huge tree, awaiting the arrival of Zhu Gyur and Patriarch Huashi. Round half a day later, a triangular flying carriage appeared in the distant sky amid a flash of spiritual light, and its passengers were none other than Zhu Gyur and Patriarch Huashi. Han Li reopened his eyes before rising to his feet. Shortly thereafter, news emerged from the Blood-Bone sect, stating that the blood clones formed by the 5 Zuhi clones had all been destroyed, and the mysterious cultivator of the blood god arts had also been killed. However, Tianju and Dai Ming had sustained severe injuries in the battle, and only less than half of the disciples who had accompanied them managed to survive. As for Sect Master Feng, he had perished during the battle. At the same time, a rumor began to spread, detailing the fact that a female Grand Ascension stage being from a foreign continent had obtained Taoist Tian Ding's inheritance, and this naturally attracted a lot of interest. Strangely enough, there were no rumors about Han Li at all. It was as if he had never even appeared in the myriad Moon Mountain range. A year and a half later, 2 Grand Ascension stage beings of the Blood Sky continent were hovering in the air above an extremely secluded valley in the Qiyun Mountain range, appraising a thin young man with an astonished look in their eyes. The young man wore a set of black robes, and he had a pair of thin and long eyes that struck the beholder with a very peculiar sense of emptiness. The young man was currently holding a severed head by its hair, and beneath his feet was a flowing river of blood that stretched as far as the eyes could see. The head had a set of refined and handsome facial features, and even in death, there was still an incredulous look etched onto it. The river of blood was around 300 to 400 feet wide and extremely viscous, but wasn't giving off any bloody odor. Instead, it was releasing an aroma close to that of sandalwood, and those who inhaled scent would immediately feel more alert. A body that had been dismembered into several pieces laid at the black-robed young man's feet, and his legs were plunged into the river halfway up his shins. However, he was as steady as if he were standing on solid ground, and he was appraising the 2 Grand Ascension stage beings before him with a hint of mockery in his eyes. Among the 2 Grand Ascension stage beings, an imposing purple-armored man seemed to have finally repressed the fear in his heart, and roared, "What did you do to us? How did you debilitate our powers so significantly? There's no way Taoist Yanyu would have been killed so easily had he been at full power. Do you realize that Taoist Yanyu was an elder of the He Lion Trade Guild, one of the premier powers of the entire spirit realm? You killed a core member of the He Lion Trade Guild. Even with your powers, your fate is sealed. What's this trade guild supposed to be? If they want to die, then they can come and find me, and I'll make them a part of this river, just like you two are going to be. As for how your powers were restricted, that has nothing to do with us. The refinement of the myriad spirit blood seal has only just been completed, and it's still unable to restrain its own aura as it pleases. You've simply been unwittingly intimidated by its aura," the black-robed young man replied in a nonchalant manner. "Nonsense! What kind of treasure could restrict our powers with its aura alone? Even a profound heavenly treasure can't achieve something like this," the purple-armored man countered. "You don't know anything. Profound heavenly treasures may be powerful, but their powers depend on the realm that they were born in. How much power could a profound heavenly treasure from a small realm like this one possibly possess? And it's like you can't even begin to imagine how fearsome profound heavenly treasures born in higher realms are," the black-robed young man replied with undisguised disdain in his voice. The purple-armored man faltered slightly upon hearing this, but a thought then occurred to him, and he yelled, "What insolence! I've never heard that our spirit realm is a so-called small realm. It seems like you're from another realm, but even so, do you really think you can oppose the power of an entire realm on your own and slaughter living beings as you please for a blood sacrifice?" Instead of being enraged to hear this, the black-robed young man carefully considered the purple-armored man's words before replying in a serious manner. "It would naturally be impossible for me to slaughter all of the living beings in this entire realm. But if all of the other Grand Ascension stage beings in this realm are only around the same level of power as you three, then it wouldn't be too difficult to kill all of you given some time. The purple-armored man's expression darkened slightly upon hearing this. Right at this moment, his companion, an elderly man with snake patterns all over his body, suddenly transformed into a giant green four-winged snake before flapping his wings vigorously and flying away as a green thread. In the blink of an eye, he was already over 10,000 feet away, and it seemed that he was on the cusp of escaping. How foolish! Do you think a mere grand ascension stage being like you can escape from my myriad spirit blood seal? The black-robed young man cast his gaze toward the fleeing snake, then uttered the word seal, and a mountainous seal projection suddenly appeared above the flying snake amid a flash of crimson light before descending in what appeared to be quite a slow manner. In the instant that the giant seal projection appeared, the flying snake was somehow completely immobilized and could only look on helplessly as the massive projection descended onto its body. As soon as the flying snake came into contact with the seal projection, it let loose a blood-curdling cry, and its body instantly disintegrated into specks of spiritual light alongside the nascent soul of the elderly man within it. These specks of spiritual light were then all absorbed into the seal projection, and as a result, the rather blurry projection became a little clearer. However, in the next instant, the seal projection vanished into thin air in a flash. Even though the purple-armored man had been through countless ordeals and had great mental fortitude, he couldn't help but be struck by a sense of despair upon seeing this. The black-robed young man was unfathomably powerful, and his own powers had been severely restricted, so there was no chance of victory for him. Even so, he certainly wasn't just going to give up. While the black-robed young man's gaze was still directed toward the distance, the purple-armored man let loose a thunderous roar, and a giant projection with the head of a dragon and the body of a horse appeared behind him amid a flash of azure light. As soon as the projection appeared, it opened its mouth to release countless balls of azure lightning amid a string of rumbling thunderclaps. At the same time, he swept both sleeves through the air, releasing around a dozen treasures of different descriptions that exploded in unison as soon as they were released. A dozen or so massive balls of light that resembled scintillating suns emerged before crashing directly toward the black-robed young man with unstoppable might, while the purple-armored man's physical body detonated into a cloud of blood mist to reveal his nascent soul. The nascent soul took a deep breath to instantly absorb all of the blood mist into its own body, then suddenly disappeared into thin air amid a flash of crimson light. In the face of the fearsome attacks being directed toward him, a cold smile appeared on the black-robed young man's face, and he made no effort to evade as he slowly extended a palm forward instead. Chapter 2377, Reemergence of the Six-Winged Frost Centipede. A burst of thunderous rumbling rang out, and a giant rainbow light barrier suddenly appeared around 100 in front of the young man. The balls of lightning and scintillating sun struck the light barrier before exploding violently, sending an enormous burst of energy erupting into the heavens, threatening to tear apart and devour everything. In the face of such a fearsome explosion, the rainbow light barrier only flashed slightly but remained completely resolute, keeping the explosive force at bay. Right at this moment, the entire sky suddenly dimmed, and a semi-transparent giant hand emerged out of thin air. The hand was smooth and translucent with countless golden runes flashing over its surface, and it made a grabbing motion, upon which the entire sky tremored violently as a burst of indescribable power descended from above. Tens of thousands of feet away, the purple-armored man's nascent soul was suddenly forced to stumble out of thin air. Even though it had already fled this far, its teleportation had suddenly been disrupted by the burst of power descending from the heavens, thereby forcing it to reveal itself. Before the alarmed nascent soul had a chance to try and teleport away again, the massive hand in the sky swooped down upon it, before gently pointing a gigantic pillar-like finger at its head. In the face of the giant finger, the nascent soul disintegrated into specks of spiritual light before it even had a chance to make a sound, and the specks of light were all absorbed by the huge finger. The black-robed young man then waved a hand through the air, and the rainbow light barrier before him crumbled away, but instead of immediately departing, he turned toward a certain direction and said, "You've been watching for quite some time now. Isn't it about time you two came out?" However, he was greeted by nothing but silence. "HMPH, so you insist on making me force you to reveal yourselves?" The black-robed young man harumphed coldly as he pointed toward that direction in a casual-looking manner. Red light flashed in the distance, and a bolt of crimson lightning came crashing down, causing the nearby space to ripple violently. You knew we were here all along. A stunned voice rang out, seeming out of thin air. Immediately thereafter, a man and a woman appeared amid a flash of spiritual light. Both of them were wearing white robes, and the man had golden and silver spirit patterns etched on either side of his face, which bore a strong resemblance to Han Li. As for the woman, this was an icy beauty with skin as fair as snow. These two were none other than the six-winged frost centipede and the ice phoenix who had been forced to accompany him on his journey. They were originally on the Thunder continent, but they had somehow made their way onto the Blood Sky continent. You think your pitiful concealment abilities can fool me? What a joke! Having said that, the two of you are quite interesting. Both of you possess mutated ice attribute true spirit bloodlines. That's very rare even in the true immortal realm. I'm in a good mood today, so I can spare you too. From now on, you can be my spirit slaves. I just so happen to be missing a couple of servants to run my errands for me in this realm, the black-robed young man said as he appraised the duo with a hint of intrigue in his eyes. Spirit slaves, you really are a true immortal, but that's impossible. The true immortal realm had lost contact with all other realms countless years ago. How could a true immortal arrive in this realm? The six-winged frost centipede exclaimed in an astonished manner. The ice phoenix was also quite bewildered to hear this. HMPH, you think we've lost contact with all realms? We've only lost contact with this small cluster of realms. On top of that, the true immortal realm isn't actually unable to contact your realm. It's just that a heavy price would have to be expended, and it simply isn't worth it under normal circumstances. The black-robed young man harumphed coldly in response. His heart jolted slightly upon hearing this, and having witnessed the power displayed by the young man to easily slay those three grand ascension stage beings, he was almost fully convinced that this man was indeed a true immortal. However, there was no way that he would ever agree to become a spirit slave for anyone. The black-robed young man could see the indecision in his eyes, and he chuckled. I'll give you 10 breaths to consider. If you don't agree, hee. There's no need for that. I can give you an answer right now. You're dreaming if you think I'll become your spirit slave. I wouldn't consider it even if you kowtowed to me right now. The six-winged frost centipede retorted with a hint of mockery in his eyes. How dare you speak to me like this? The black-robed young man could barely believe his own ears, and an astonishing baleful aura erupted out of his body before sweeping forth in all directions. The surrounding space twisted and warped violently in the face of this baleful aura, and there were even thin white spatial rifts appearing, as if this entire space were about to be torn apart. The six-winged frost centipede immediately slammed a fist into his own chest upon seeing this, following which a translucent bead encompassed within a ball of blue blood essence was released out of his mouth. As soon as the bead appeared, it transformed into a pair of translucent wings that instantly attached themselves to his back. At the same time, he swept a sleeve through the air to release a burst of glacial light that swept up the ice phoenix, then transformed into his frost centipede form. However, in addition to the 3 pairs of wings on his back, there was also a 4th pair formed by the bead. He flapped his 8 wings in unison and immediately shot forth as a white thread, vanishing into thin air in a flash, leaving only the sound of an object whistling through the air in the extremely far distance. Such an astonishing movement technique came as quite a surprise even to the black-robed young man, but his expression quickly returned to normal as he scoffed. How foolish! Do you really think this movement technique will allow you to escape from me? As soon as his voice trailed off, the river of blood beneath his feet surged upward in a frenzy, before being absorbed into his body down to the very last drop within the span of just a few breaths. As a result, his aura was enhanced by severalfold, yet just as he was preparing to give chase, countless purplish golden runes suddenly appeared around him before forming a shimmering golden chain that sprang toward him in a flash. His expression changed slightly upon seeing this, but for some reason, he made no effort to evade. Thus, the chain wound itself around his body, and the fearsome aura that he was releasing instantly dissipated. At the same time, his face paled slightly as he threw up a mouthful of silver blood essence, and only then did the purplish golden chain disappear. He cast his gaze toward the direction that they had fled in, and murmured to himself, "This may only be a small realm, but as expected, I still can't contend with the restrictive power of an entire realm. Having said that, even if I only use a small portion of my power, there's no way those two would be able to get away. There has to be an interval of several months between blood sacrifices anyway, so I might as well take this time to have some fun with those two. I hope they'll actually put up some decent resistance, so they can entertain me for a while." As soon as his voice trailed off, he swept a sleeve through the air, and a rainbow cloud appeared beneath his feet before carrying him through the air. He wasn't flying very quickly, and he seemed to be very calm and relaxed. 2 days later, the six-winged frost centipede and the ice phoenix were meditating in a crude, temporary cave abode erected within the belly of a small mountain. After a long while, the six-winged frost centipede finally opened his eyes before exhaling a burst of white glacial chi. The ice phoenix also opened her eyes upon sensing this, before appraising him with a complex expression. "Have you recovered the energy you expended earlier? Even the average Grand Ascension stage being wouldn't have been able to easily unleash that movement technique. It's a good thing that you obtained that treasure that formed a fourth set of wings for you. Otherwise, there's no way we could have escaped. HMPH, I didn't just sit around and twiddled my thumbs during my years in the primordial world. I encountered several significant opportunities during my journey, and there's no way I'll be willing to become a spirit slave to anyone, even a true immortal. As for the energy I expended, don't worry about that. The plain yin star chi that I absorbed is still within my body, so I can replenish my energy in no time. However, if I can track down the plain yin race and learn their method for communicating with the power of stars to attain a true immortal body, I'll be able to contend even with a true immortal." The six-winged frost centipede harumphed coldly. "I guess you can only blame your bad luck. The plain yin race had always resided on the Thunder continent since ancient times. Who would have thought they would suddenly decide to mass migrate to the Blood Sky continent? Even so, surely it would be delusional to count on them to help you oppose a true immortal," the Ice Phoenix said in a cold voice. "If this were a true immortal at the height of his powers, then there would be no hope for me at all, but a true immortal that descends into this realm will be restricted by the power of the realm. As such, he'll only be able to unleash 30% to 40% of his power at most, which would make him comparable in power to only some of the more powerful true spirit beings, and that's definitely manageable. Just give me several more centuries and... Crap, he's catching up again." The six-winged frost centipede suddenly exclaimed, as his expression changed drastically. Chapter 2378, Premonition. He immediately swept a sleeve through the air to release a burst of glacial light, which dragged the ice phoenix over to his side. He then opened his mouth to release that translucent bead, transforming into a giant eight-winged centipede, before fleeing out of the cave abode as a white thread. A short while later, the black-robed young man appeared in the distance atop his rainbow cloud. He appeared to be moving quite slowly, but that wasn't actually the case at all, and he arrived above the mountain after just a few flashes. Letter 1D4F, letter 1D4FB, letter 1D486, letter 1D65A, letter 1D498, letter 1D4E, letter 1D4FF, letter 1D658, letter 1D4F8, letter 1D662. He glanced down expressionlessly at the mountain, and a cold smile appeared on his face before he flew away atop the rainbow cloud again, departing in the same direction that the six-winged frost centipede had fled toward. It seemed that this true immortal really did have a way to track the duo. Even after such a long time, he was still able to find their location with unerring accuracy. Thus, the pursuit continued. Due to that movement technique being used by the six-winged frost centipede, there was a vast speed disparity, but no matter how much distance was opened up between them, the black-robed young man would always be able to catch up in a few days like a cat toying with a mouse. The six-winged frost centipede was extremely alarmed by this, but no matter how he examined the ice phoenixes and his own body, he couldn't find any tracking marks. Only then did he realize that he had underestimated this true immortal after all. As such, he could only continue to expend the plain yin star chi that he had recently manifested to flee from their pursuer. 3 months later, the six-winged frost centipede was on the verge of collapse, but the black-robed young man suddenly disappeared and didn't reappear for several days. The six-winged frost centipede and ice phoenix were naturally ecstatic to see this, thinking that they had finally shaken off their pursuer. Thus, they hurriedly found a secluded location where the six-winged frost centipede was able to replenish his own energy. But half a month later, the black-robed young man appeared in the nearby area again, and the two of them could only continue their life on the run. In a secluded hall in the headquarters of the Helion Trade Guild on the Blood Sky continent, Bai Ying was seated behind a purple wooden table, appraising a jade slip that he had just received with a dark expression. Moments later, he finished reading the contents of the jade slip before setting it down, then clapped his hands together, and a blurry humanoid figure immediately appeared amid a gentle breeze. The figure extended a deep bow toward Bai Ying, who asked, "What happened? Why did it take you so long to report fellow Taoist Yan Yu's death to me?" According to our sources, Senior Yan Yu met up with two other Grand Ascension Stage seniors before venturing into the Qiyun mountain range to investigate the disappearance of the 8 nations and 19 sects populations. However, it was only several months later that we received news that they had tracked down the suspected culprit. After that, no further news was received. Thus, we ventured into the Qiyun mountain range with the sole badges of those 3 seniors, but not long after we entered the mountain range, all 3 badges shattered in unison. Only then did we realize that the 3 of them had already fallen, but their deaths had somehow been concealed. After investigating for around another month, we finally tracked down the residual auras of the 3 seniors in a secluded location, and it seemed that a fierce battle had taken place there, and that they had all perished at around the same time, but they only seemed to have a single opponent. This is an extremely important matter, so we didn't dare to report back to you until we were sure that our information was correct, the blurry figure explained. It's quite incredible that someone was able to repress the reactions of soul badges, even if it's only for a short time. At the very least, I've never heard of something like this in all my years. Fellow Taoist Yan Yu and the others were only considered to be average among Grand Ascension Stage beings, but there are definitely no more than 10 known beings on the Blood Sky continent capable of killing all 3 of them at once on their own. Aside from myself, none of the other elders of the guild would have been able to accomplish this. It looks like the culprit behind the blood sacrifice is a truly fearsome being, Bai Ying said with a cold look in his eyes. If the culprit had only sacrificed the nations and sects of the Qiyun mountain range, then that would be the end of the matter. With his fearsome might, none of the other powers would be willing to seek revenge against him. However, we've just received news that he appeared again in the Great Dragon Nation around half a month ago and created another boundless river of blood by sacrificing the entire population of that nation. As a result, the Blood Bone Sect and several other major powers were forced to step in. Apparently, these powers have been interacting frequently these past few days, and they seem to be planning to assemble a devil-slaying squad of Grand Ascension Stage beings to hunt down this menace. We've also received letters from the involved parties requesting for our trade guild to join them, the blurry figure explained. So the Blood Bone Sect and the other super sects are finally willing to step in. It looks like things are truly escalating. Our trade guild will stay out of this matter for now, but we can't just not do anything. I'll get Elder Jun to join this devil-slaying squad, but to prioritize his own safety above all else and take care not to directly oppose that menace. Our trade guild has already lost fellow Taoist Yan Yu, and that's a severe blow, Bai Ying decided. Yes, I'll notice Elder Jin Yimeng right away, the blurry figure said with a respectful bow. Also, it's almost time for our match against the Infernal Realm, so begin making preparations and summoning our representatives. HMPH, if it weren't for the fact that I have to stay in the guild and prepare for the upcoming match, I would be tempted to see for myself just what kind of menace has sacrificed so many living beings, Bai Ying harumphed coldly. Rest assured, Senior, I'll get everything arranged. Among our representatives, Elder Wen Zhenfeng is in this area, and Master Lei has already arrived on the Blood Sky continent and is in temporary seclusion in one of our trade guild's branches. According to our sources, Senior Han seems to be traveling around the Tidefall grassland area in search of the ancient altars nearby. The only concern lies with Senior Zhu Sha. Ever since he entered the legendary Thousand Steps maze a year ago, he still hasn't returned. Could it be that he's been trapped in there like everyone else? The blurry figure speculated in a hesitant voice. Rest assured, Zhu Sha's powers aren't inferior to my own, and with his steadfast nature, there's no way he would have ventured into that maze had he not had full confidence that he would be able to escape from it. Once the agreed time arrives, I'm sure he'll show up, Bai Ying replied. In that case, I'll send out messages to Master Lei and Senior Han, then get the members of our branches to arrange their teleportation to the entrance of that small world, the figure said. All right, go ahead, Bai Ying agreed with a slight nod. Spatial fluctuations erupted in front of the wooden table once again, and the blurry figure vanished after extending a parting bow. Following his departure, Bai Ying reached out toward a pile of jade slips on the table in an absent-minded manner. However, right at this moment, a dull thump suddenly rang out from within his body, and his expression changed drastically as his outstretched hand stiffened in midair. Only after a long while did he take a deep breath before withdrawing his hand and pressing it against his own waist. A green jade box immediately flew out amid a burst of green light, then hovered in the air before him. The surface of the box was riddled with countless spirit patterns, as well as several golden talismans that were flashing with faint spiritual light. Bai Ying's expression changed slightly as he quickly made a string of hand seals before pointing a finger toward the jade box, upon which the golden talismans were removed at his behest. The lid of the box also flew up on its own, revealing a strange-looking flat round disc. The disc was as pristine white as jade, with a crimson formation engraved on its surface, at the center of which was a black and white yin-yang diagram. The disc seemed to possess some type of mystical property that struck the beholder with a sense of captivation. Only after praising the disc for a long while did Bai Ying grit his teeth before reaching into the jade box. As soon as his finger came into contact with the red formation, it immediately cracked as if it were extremely fragile, and the yin-yang diagram at its very center completely shattered at the same time. I didn't think the legends would ring true. I've been using my blood essence to refine this treasure ever since I reached the Grand Ascension stage. Who would have thought that it would actually display a premonition? Could this have something to do with the upcoming match against the infernal realm, or am I about to face another tribulation designed by fate? Bai Ying murmured to himself as he stared at the round disc with a dark expression. After a long silence, Bai Ying harumphed coldly, "HMPH, my life is in my own hands, not in the hands of some predetermined fate. Even if this treasure really is as accurate as the legends suggest, there's still a chance that I could survive. However, I'll definitely have to prepare some more measures in addition to the ones I've already prepared." He then released a burst of green light from the jade box, and the box itself remained unharmed, but the white formation plate within it immediately disintegrated into dust. Chapter 2379, Imminent Battle. Above a certain giant lake in the renowned tideful grassland on the Blood Sky continent, Han Li and the others were flying through the air in a nondescript flying boat. Han Li was standing at the very front of the boat in an expressionless manner, while Zhu Gyur and Patriarch Hua, she were standing behind him with dejected expressions. A short while ago, they had just tested the final ancient altar on the grassland, but were disappointed to find that it still wasn't the one they were searching for. All of a sudden, a clear buzzing sound rang out from Han Li's body. His expression changed slightly as he released a blue formation plate out of his sleeve, and around a dozen shimmering silver characters appeared on the object's surface. "Let's go to the nearby Pegasus City," Han Li immediately instructed. Patriarch Hua, she was rather surprised to hear this, but he immediately obliged, controlling the flying boat to fly toward another direction. "What happened, Senior Han? Could it be that the match against the infernal realm is about to begin?" Zhu Gyur asked. Han Li hadn't told her everything about this upcoming match, but he had revealed some inconsequential information about it to her. Thus, she didn't know the exact details involved, but she did know that Han Li had to fight a certain group of powerful beings at a certain time and place. "That's right. I benefited from the He-Lion Trade Guild in the past, so I can't revoke my promise now," Han Li replied. "Even with so many Grand Ascension stage beings among its ranks, the Trade Guild is still requesting your assistance. It's clear that this is going to be no ordinary match. Please be careful, Senior Han," Zhu Gyur said in a concerned manner. "Don't worry, with my current powers, there shouldn't be many beings in the world who can pose a threat to me. Even if I can't defeat my opponent, I'll definitely be able to at least get away safely," Han Li said with a confident smile. Both Zhu Gyur and Patriarch Hua, she were quite reassured by Han Li's display of confidence. Half a month later, Han Li's trio arrived at a giant city on the outskirts of the grassland. In contrast with normal cities, there were rows of thick dark green bamboo trees planted outside the city wall to form another wall of bamboo that surrounded the entire city. There were gray Pegasus statues that were over 100 meters tall situated at roughly 500-meter intervals along the city wall, and not only were they extremely lifelike, all of them were in different poses. Instead of landing at the city gate, Han Li's flying boat flew directly over the city wall before crashing into the invisible restrictions over the city, much to the astonishment of countless low-grade and mid-grade cultivators down below. However, the flying boat only descended slightly before continuing on toward the center of the city. "That's a Grand Ascension stage, Senior," many of the people down below immediately exclaimed. The astonishment on the faces of the guards on the city wall also transitioned into respectful expressions upon seeing this. There was no way that a body integration stage being would be able to allow a flying boat to completely disregard a city's flight restrictions. Only someone at or above the Grand Ascension stage would be able to accomplish this. Most cities had rules prohibiting outsiders from flying in the city, but Grand Ascension stage beings, and even some powerful body integration stage beings, could naturally ignore such rules. Of course, the number and caliber of powerful beings guarding a city differed from city to city. Pegasus City wasn't a huge city, but there were no Grand Ascension stage beings within its walls. There were only several body integration cultivators in the city, and the guards certainly wouldn't dare to oppose a Grand Ascension stage being. Thus, Hanley's trio quickly arrived in front of a massive building at the center of the city that bore the symbol of the He-Lion Trade Guild before the flying boat was stowed away. As soon as they began to descend from above, 2 rows of people immediately emerged from the building with respectful expressions. All of them extended deep bows toward Han Li, and a gray-haired elderly man who appeared to be around 60 to 70 years of age said in a respectful voice, "We pay our respects to Senior Han. We were made aware of your imminent arrival several days ago, and have already prepared the teleportation formation. Would you like to take a rest before setting off, Senior Han? I see your trade guild is very efficient. There's no need for any rest. Prepare for teleportation right away," Han Li instructed. "All right, please come with me, Senior," the elderly man replied with another respectful bow. Han Li nodded in response before making his way toward the entrance of the building, followed closely by Zhu Gyur and Patriarch Huashi. A short while later, Han Li arrived in a secluded underground hall, at the center of which stood a silver formation that was riddled with spirit runes. Han Li quickly inspected his surroundings, and his brows furrowed slightly as he asked, "Will this formation take me directly to the small world?" "Indeed, Senior. Master Bai Ying arranged for all of our trade guild's representatives to meet in the small world," the elderly man replied. "In that case, I'm sure the preparations on fellow Taoist Bai's end are complete. Begin the teleportation," Han Li instructed with a smile before stepping into the formation, as did Zhu Gyur and Patriarch Huashi. The elderly man gave an affirmative response before summoning an azure Jade badge, which he waved through the air to release a streak of silver light that vanished into the formation in a flash. In the next instant, the entire formation began to emit a faint buzzing sound, and Han Li's trio vanished amid a flash of silver light. The silver light flashed within a formation surrounded by lush greenery in another world, and Han Li's trio re-emerged. "You finally arrived, Brother Han. How have you been these past few years?" A voice rang out from behind the nearby trees, following which one of the trees suddenly split apart into 2 people. The duo was comprised of a green-robed elderly man with a smile on his wizened face, and a young brocade-robed woman who was quite elegant and refined appearance, and was holding a small silver beast in her arms. Han Li could sense a familiar aura from the elderly man, and he asked, "Fellow Taoist Bai Ying?" "That's right, it's me. I hope you aren't holding any grudges over the test I implemented during our first meeting. We'll be counting on you during this match," Bai Ying said with a smile. "Of course, Brother Bai. I agreed to participate in this match, so I'll be sure to do my best," Han Li replied with a smile. Bai Ying then turned to the young woman beside him and introduced, "This is Elder Wen Xinfeng of our Trade Guild's panel of elders, and she hails from the Illusion Heart Sect. Her powers rank near the top of all of our elders on the Blood Sky continent, and she's also one of our Trade Guild's representatives for this match." The Illusion Heart Sect. I've heard that this is the largest sect in the northern region of the Blood Sky continent. The sect doesn't have many disciples, but all of them are top-tier beings at their respective cultivation bases, Han Li said as a hint of surprise flashed through his eyes. Having roamed the Blood Sky continent for several years, he had become rather familiar with some of the major powers on the continent. Letter 1D453, letter 1D633, letter 1D626, letter 1D452, letter 1D464, letter 1D452, letter 1D450, letter 1D45C, letter 1D45A. This was a powerful being from a sect that was not inferior to the Blood-Bone sect, so it was rather counterintuitive that someone like her would join the He-Lion Trade Guild, and that was the reason for his surprise. When Xinfeng seemed to have sensed Han Li's befuddlement, and she smiled as she explained, "The founding father of our sect came from our trade guild, and ever since our sect was founded, it had always been a strong ally of the trade guild, so it's only natural that I became an elder of the guild." "I see, that does make sense," Han Li said as an enlightened look appeared on his face. Please come to my abode to take a good rest, Brother Han. There are only 2 months left until the match against the Infernal Realm, and fellow Taoist Lei and fellow Taoist Zhu Sha should be arriving soon. If you have any needs, feel free to state them, and our trade guild will do our best to fulfill those needs, Bai Ying said as he led Han Li's trio toward a small path. I'll be sure to do so, Brother Bai, Han Li replied with a smile. Thus, the group soon emerged from the surrounding forest, before arriving in front of a massive cluster of buildings akin to a stronghold. This is one of the large settlements our trade guild has set up in this world, and it's the one closest to the area controlled by those beings of the Infernal Realm. Their territory is only hundreds of thousands of kilometers away, and the match will be taking place on the border between the territories under each side's control. When the time for the match comes, the armies of both sides will also be mobilized, so as a safety precaution. Bai Ying began to introduce the current circumstances, while leading Han Li's group toward the stronghold. There were over 100 armored warriors stationed at the gate of the stronghold, and there were also some human-beast hybrid puppets that were roaming the city walls, which were over 1,000 feet tall and resembled sheer cliff faces. Lights of all types of different colors were flashing above the stronghold, and restriction fluctuations encompassed the entire area, making it apparent that the stronghold was very tightly guarded. With Bai Ying leading the way, the guards at the gate naturally weren't going to stop them. Instead, they quickly extended respectful bows before backing away to either side, granting the group entry to the stronghold. Round an hour later, Han Li found himself situated in a secret chamber on the top floor small stone pagoda at the center of the stronghold. He was currently seated with his legs crossed, meditating to prime himself into the best condition, while Zhu Gyur and Patriarch Hua she were standing on guard duty in shifts outside. Chapter 2380, The Five Monarchs of the Netherworld. 2 months passed by in the blink of an eye, and on this day, Han Li was meditating in his secret chamber when Zhu Gyur's respectful voice sounded outside the secret chamber. Senior Han, Master Bai Ying is inviting you to go and see him, and the messenger says that the match is about to commence soon. Han Li opened his eyes and replied calmly, All right, I'll be there right away. This could be a dangerous trip, so you and Hua she can stay here for now. Immediately thereafter, he rose up as a streak of azure light and vanished through the door of the secret chamber in a flash. Round an hour later, Han Li arrived at a hall at the center of the stronghold, which was also the largest building in the entire stronghold. There he met Bai Ying, Wen Zhenfeng, and a silver-armored man with a cold expression. This is Brother Lei Yuan, the manager of our trade guild on the Thunder Continent, so his status is identical to mine on the Blood Sky Continent. Fellow Taoist Zhu Sha encountered some trouble during his trip here, but he should be here tomorrow at the latest. For now, we'll be going on ahead. Does anyone have any objections? Bai Ying asked after introducing the silver-armored man to Han Li. You're responsible for this match, so I won't intervene in any way, the silver-armored man replied in an expressionless manner. Han Li and Wen Zhenfeng didn't have any objections either. Thus, after a brief discussion, the group made their way out of the hall, where orderly rows of armored warriors were already waiting for them. Furthermore, there were around a dozen giant flat flying treasures above the stronghold that resembled a series of islands, and following an order from Bai Ying, all of the armored warriors immediately rose up into these islands. That's all the troops we're taking with us, the silver-armored man asked as his brows furrowed slightly. Of course not, these are only the troops we're presenting on the surface. As for all of the other troops, they've already been sent to a predetermined location half a month ago. If those ghostly beings are harboring any ulterior motives, we'll make sure they don't get away alive, Bai Ying replied. The silver-armored man nodded in response upon hearing this. Only after all of the armored warriors had entered the giant flying treasures did Han Li and the others fly into the largest of the islands. In the next instant, all of the flying treasures were activated and set off toward the distance. Half a day later, the group of flying treasures arrived above a peculiar mountain range. There seemed to be an invisible line running along the entire mountain range, with the area on one side of the line resembling a lush green paradise, while the other was filled with surging black qi and gusts of yin winds. The giant islands drew to a halt over 100 kilometers away from this imaginary line, following which groups of armored warriors began to exit the flying treasures. They immediately sprang into action, releasing all types of formation tools to begin constructing a giant super formation down below. There were also some who were hurling balls of light of different colors up into the air, and large sections of city walls, as well as buildings of different descriptions began to descend from above, forming a small stronghold in the blink of an eye. At the same time, a series of armed puppets were released from the storage bracelets of the armored puppets, and they immediately began to patrol the city walls. Meanwhile, Han Li and the others had emerged from their giant island, and were praising the imaginary divisive line from afar. Those 5 mountains that resemble fingers will be the venue for our match. Once the match begins, each of us will go to a mountain, and once everyone is in place, the formation masters from both sides will activate the 2 protective restrictions set up in advance. Only when one side concedes or has perished will the 2 protective restrictions be deactivated, Bai Ying explained with a serious expression. Could those ghostly beings have tampered with the restrictions in any way? Wen Xinfeng asked. Rest assured, both the restrictions are identical and quite simple. After their setup, the formation masters from both sides will cross-examine the restrictions to ensure that nothing is amiss, Bai Ying explained with a smile. If one battle concludes very early, will the victor be allowed to participate in other battles? Han Li asked. This wasn't discussed, but this match was set up to fight for ownership over this realm, so it should naturally be a reflection of both sides' overall power, Bai Ying replied in a meaningful voice. Even though the response was rather vague, a knowing smile appeared on Han Li's face as he replied, I understand. There are no rules for this match. You can use whatever means available to kill or defeat your opponent. Of course, at our level, defeating an opponent of the same caliber may not be that difficult, but it would most likely be very hard to actually kill an opponent. On top of that, our opponents are going to be very powerful, and their cultivation arts and secret techniques are all very different from ones that we normally see, so do be careful, Bai Ying cautioned. Rest assured, Brother Bai, it's not like I haven't faced these ghostly beings in the past. I've already specifically prepared several treasures that'll suppress their abilities, and I'm sure these treasures will be effective even if our opponents are more powerful than normal ghostly beings. Wen Xinfeng replied with a smile as she stroked the small beast in her arms. Bai Ying was ecstatic to hear this. Your abilities already have a suppressive effect on those ghostly beings. Now that you've also prepared some special treasures, I'm sure your chances of securing victory will be very high. I wouldn't be so sure of that. I've heard that the 10 monarchs of the netherworld are the most powerful ghostly beings in the entire infernal realm. They're definitely going to present very stern opposition, Wen Xinfeng replied with a shake of her head. Haha, you're far too modest, Fairy Wen. Our opponents are no ordinary beings, but neither are we. I'm sure the outcome of the match will be in our favor. You can all go and rest for now. I'll send out some people to set up the restrictions on the 5 mountains once fellow Taoist Zhu Sha arrives. I'm sure those ghostly beings have also arrived on the other side, Bai Ying said as he cast his gaze toward the surging black qi on the other side of the divisive line. At the same time, there were close to 100 white mountains that were each over 10,000 feet tall, hovering in the sky several hundred kilometers within the vast expanse of black qi. The mountains were surrounded by countless ghostly shadows and yin souls. Someone with a spirit eye ability would be able to see through these yin winds to identify that these white mountains were piles of countless white bones with flames burning all over their surfaces. There were also some openings on the mountains, through which powerful ghostly beings were entering and exiting incessantly. In contrast with all of the other mountains, the Bone Mountain at the very center had thousands of armed ghostly beings patrolling around it. Within a crimson hall at the very center of the Bone Mountain were several indistinct black shadows discussing something while seated on black chairs. Why have the 5 of us been made to come all this way just for a small world? Aren't we overestimating them? Just give me an army of 1 million troops and I'll raze their entire stronghold to the ground. There's no need for this farcical match, a tall and broad figure said in a cold voice. HMPH, don't underestimate them. If they were that easy to deal with, then the ghostly monarchs overseeing this matter wouldn't have sustained injuries during their battles against the powerful beings of the other side, and our forces wouldn't have been prevented from being able to progress beyond this point. They're definitely going to be sending out the most powerful beings among their ranks as well, so don't get complacent. If we lose here, we'll become laughing stocks to the others, and we'll have to answer to Brother Mingsheng, a slender black shadow retorted. That suits me just fine. My 5-yin Lockhart hammer just so happens to be missing the soul of a powerful being as a tool spirit. If I can kill one of them, then that issue will be resolved, the first figure replied in a nonchalant manner. It's a pity that Brother Mingxiang is in the midst of a battle against the Night Ghost race over another Yin realm and can't make it today. Otherwise, with his powers, our opponents wouldn't have any chances, a third shadow sighed. The Night Ghost race is very powerful, and it's said that their chieftain possesses unfathomable powers, so only Brother Mingxiang can oppose him. In contrast with this small world, which will require many years of evolution before it becomes truly valuable to us, that Yin realm is naturally more important, the slender figure replied. Seeing as we're all here, all of us will be participating in the match in a few days. With our powers, our chances of victory should be at least 70% to 80%. The main issue is whether the other side will abide by the agreement and hand over their territory to us after we win. Have you prepared all of our backup measures, Seven Orifices Monarch? Another black shadow spoke for the first time in a sinister voice. The other black shadows reflexively sat up straighter and fell silent upon hearing this voice. Chapter 2381, Netherworld Monarch Chapter Menace. Rest assured, all of the preparations are complete, and our army has also reached the predetermined destination. It's a pity that their realm is a main realm that we're unable to convert. Otherwise, we'd be able to directly invade their realm through that realm entrance. Having said that, it's a good thing that we can resolve this through this match. After all, aside from this small world, we have no other conflicts of interest with them. The final short figure replied in a voice akin to that of an infant. Through searching the souls of the living beings we captured, I discovered that their realm seems to belong to a cluster of realms that has already lost contact with the true immortal realm for countless years. If it weren't for an incident that occurred in this small world that just so happened to connect it with our two main realms, we wouldn't even be able to come into contact with them. It's exactly because of this that their cultivation conventions shouldn't have changed much since ancient times, and they could possess many cultivation arts and secret techniques that are very rare in other realms. This is why Brother Mingxiang sent all 5 of us here at once. On one hand, he wants us to claim sole ownership over this small world, and at the same time, he also wants us to learn some things while battling our opponents. Haven't you realized that the 5 of us have all been stuck at bottlenecks for many years? The authoritative shadow said. The burly shadow's eye immediately lit up upon hearing this. In that case, we really have to thank Brother Mingxiao for being so thoughtful. It's a rare opportunity to witness ancient cultivation arts. Hopefully they won't disappoint us. All right, seeing as there are no other issues, let's end things here for today and go back to rest. Tomorrow, we'll send out some people to communicate with our opponents and set up the required restrictions in preparation for the upcoming match, the authoritative shadow declared. All of the other shadows nodded in agreement. The next morning, groups of armored warriors and menacing ghostly beings appeared on the 5 mountains, and they were all busy at work. Only after half a day had passed did the formation masters on both sides complete the protective restrictions, and cross-examination took place thereafter. Several hours later, all of the formation masters left the mountains, with each side leaving only a few guards at the location. Another day passed, and just as Han Li was making his way toward the hall of the stronghold, he finally met the vastly renowned Zhu Sha of the Blood Sky continent. This was a gray-robed, middle-aged man with an ordinary appearance, but Han Li was able to clearly sense the extremely fearsome baleful aura within Zhu Sha's body, which was quite alarming even to Han Li. Before Han Li had a chance to say anything to Zhu Sha, they were called out of the hall by Bai Ying and flew into one of the giant islands up above. In the next instant, the massive flying treasure set off, and shortly thereafter it stopped less than 10 kilometers away from the 5 mountains. Immediately thereafter, Han Li and the others appeared directly above the island before peering into the distance. A burst of rumbling rang out within the black chi on the other side of the divisive line, and a giant bone mountain emerged before also stopping near the 5 mountains. A burst of black chi then emerged from the summit of the bone mountain, within which were several black shadows of different statures. Bai Ying's pupils contracted slightly upon seeing this, and he glanced up at the sky before falling still again. Han Li and the others were also appraising the giant mountain in an expressionless manner. After a long while, the scintillating white sun in the sky suddenly dimmed slightly, and the armored warriors and ghostly beings near the mountains immediately scattered in unison, quickly retreating back to their own sides. Bai Ying's expression changed slightly upon seeing this, and he said, "It's time, fellow Taoists. Regardless of the outcome of this match, we'll be sure to issue all of you the promised compensation." "That's all I needed to hear," Zhu Sha said with a faint smile. then flew toward one of the mountains as a streak of crimson light. "Have you prepared the item that I want as well?" the silver-armored man asked. "Rest assured, Brother Lei, the item has already been tracked down and is awaiting your collection." The silver-armored man was very pleased to hear this, and a dark cloud abruptly emerged beneath his feet amid a rumbling thunderclap, before also carrying him toward one of the mountains. As for Wen Zhenfeng, she tossed the small beast in her arms forward, and it immediately transformed into a giant winged silver sable that flapped its wings and shot forth as a streak of silver light, carrying Wen Zhenfeng on its back as it flew toward the distance. Meanwhile, Han Li cupped his fist in a salute toward Bai Ying before taking a step forward, upon which he abruptly vanished on the spot. In the next instant, he reappeared over 1,000 feet away, and after a few more flashes, he arrived above the second mountain from the left. Everyone seemed to have intentionally left the mountain in the very middle for Bai Ying, whose sleeves expanded as he sprang forward, gently flying through the air as if he had transformed into a massive bird. At the same time, 5 figures were also approaching the 5 mountains from within the black chi on the other side of the divisive line. As Han Li set foot on the peak of the second mountain, a ball of black chi was already rapidly descending toward him. A resounding boom rang out, and the mountain tremored slightly as a burly figure emerged within a huge crater up ahead. Han Li's eyes narrowed slightly as he appraised his opponent, upon which he discovered that the burly man was enshrouded within a black shadowy barrier, making it impossible to glean his true features. Han Li could only just barely make out a shadowy figure with a pair of massive curved horns on his head, and limbs that were far longer than that of the average person, as well as a pair of crimson eyes that were filled with boundless ferocity, resembling the eyes of a fearsome beast. "You made the right choice by picking the mighty Netherworld Monarch Menace as your opponent, kid. I'm going to make sure you die a painless death." The burly figure chuckled coldly as he appraised Han Li intently with his ferocious eyes. "Netherworld Monarch Menace, eh? I'm looking forward to seeing if you can back up your words with your actions," Han Li replied in a nonchalant manner. Right at this moment, a buzzing sound rang out around the entire mountain, following which over 100 pillars of light rose up into the sky in unison, then transformed into a pair of massive 5-colored light barriers that encompassed the entire mountain. Letter 1D4 BB, letter 1D4 5F, letter 212F, letter 212F, letter 1D4 64, letter 1D4 52, letter 1D4 4F, letter 1D4 B8, letter 1D4 5C, letter 1D6 2E. Han Li released his spiritual sense toward the light barriers, only for it to be immediately repelled. As a result, he was unable to keep any tabs on the battles on the neighboring mountains. It seemed that this restriction was designed so that each pair of combatants could focus on their battle, without being distracted by other battles. Just as this thought crossed Han Li's mind, Netherworld Monarch Menace looked up at the light barriers before suddenly letting loose a low roar. An extremely fearsome aura immediately erupted from his body, before rising up into the sky as a black tornado. However, the tornado was then quickly torn apart down the middle, and Netherworld Monarch Menace was fully revealed to be a giant figure that was over 30 feet tall with the head of a cow and a human body. He had gray skin and was wearing a suit of black armor that was riddled with countless sharp spikes. He was wielding a red mace refined from some type of unknown material in one hand, and he was also wearing a shimmering golden nose ring. "Interesting. You refined this body after possessing the body of a beast. In that case, you must be very confident in your physical body," Han Li remarked with a faint smile. "Why don't you come and test the power of this body for yourself?" Netherworld Monarch Menace chortled as he swung his red mace through the air like lightning several times in succession. A string of resounding booms immediately rang out above Han Li, and several pavilion-sized mace projections peered out of thin air before crashing down in unison. Even before they had actually arrived, the tremendous force imbued within the projections was sending gusts of fierce winds sweeping down from above. However, Han Li didn't even bother to raise his head as he extended a shimmering golden fist upward in a casual-looking manner, releasing a golden fist projection that clashed with the enormous force crashing down upon him. An earth-shattering boom rang out as white shockwaves and golden light intertwined, and the mace projections and golden fist projection were destroyed in unison. Netherworld Monarch Menace's pupils contracted slightly upon seeing this. "Oh, your physical body is quite powerful as well." Even though he had used only around 10% to 20% of his full power, it was clear from Han Li's nonchalant display that he hadn't used much power, either in that punch, and that was rather surprising to Netherworld monarch Menace, who had always been renowned in the infernal realm for his physical prowess. Before he had a chance to do anything else, Han Li suddenly made a grabbing motion, and an azure longsword appeared in his grasp amid a flash of azure light before being slashed through the air, releasing countless azure threads that swept toward Netherworld monarch Menace with ferocious might. Chapter 2382, The Five Devils. Netherworld monarch Menace's eyes narrowed slightly upon seeing this, and he brandished his mace in front of himself in a casual manner before taking a deep breath and letting loose a deafening roar. In the face of this thunderous roar, the space before him twisted and warped, forming a semi-transparent light barrier. The azure thread struck the light barrier like a torrential storm, only to instantly vanish into it without a trace. A hint of surprise flashed through Han Li's eyes upon seeing this, and the azure longsword in his hand elongated to around 10 feet in length at his behest before being slashed through the air again. All of a sudden, a sword projection that was over 100 feet in length appeared above Netherworld monarch Menace before crashing down from above. Netherworld monarch Menace gave a cold harumph as he lashed out upward with his mace without any hesitation. Countless bursts of black chi surged out of the mace in a frenzy amid a burst of ghostly howls, transforming into a black dragon that rose up into the heavens. Even before the azure sword projection had a chance to descend, it was destroyed by the black dragon, which then let loose a rumbling roar as it pounced directly toward Han Li. Han Li's expression remained unchanged at the sight of the black dragon, and all of a sudden, a series of azure flying swords erupted out of all parts of his body before forming an azure sword lotus that was around an acre in size. The petals of the sword lotus slowly blossomed at Han Li's behest, and it then surged toward the black dragon before tearing the dragon into countless shreds with its peerlessly sharp sword chi. As opposed to being enraged by the destruction of the black dragon, Netherworld monarch Menace chortled with glee. "Haha, even though I was only testing you just now, I can see that you're quite a formidable opponent. I'll be able to have some fun in this battle." As soon as his voice trailed off, he brandished his mace again before beginning to chant an incantation. All of a sudden, bright crimson light erupted from his mace, and it transformed into a crimson flag. The flag was comprised of crimson mist, while the flagpole was constructed from a length of white bone. Just the mere sight of the flag struck one with a bone-chilling sensation, and as soon as it took shape, the flag was tossed up into the air by Netherworld monarch Menace. Countless arcs of black lightning sprang out of the surface of the flag, and 5 shimmering golden skulls suddenly emerged from it. Initially, the skulls were only around the size of average bowls, but they quickly swelled to the size of wagon wheels with crimson flames flashing in their eyes and faint green light being released out of their mouths. Han Li couldn't help but falter slightly upon seeing this. "He, these are true yin devils that I refined from the martial souls of the powerful enemies I've slain. Perhaps you'll have the honor of becoming my 6th yin devil," Netherworld monarch Menace chortled, as he pointed a finger at the skulls up above. The crimson flames in the eyes of the skulls immediately swelled up, and the 5 skulls transformed into 5 ghostly devils, each of which had long purple hair, sharp claws, and menacing facial features. On top of that, there were crimson flames burning all over their bodies, and their auras weren't inferior to that of the average Grand Ascension stage being. Letter 1D627, letter 1D4C7, letter 212F, letter 212F, letter 1D464, letter 212F, letter 1D623. Letter 1D450, letter 1D630, letter 1D45A. "Go," Netherworld monarch Menace ordered as he pointed a finger at Han Li, and the 5 golden ghostly devils immediately shot forth toward Han Li as 5 balls of golden light. "How interesting. It's quite remarkable that you were able to convert nascent souls into these devilish creatures. However, if you think you're the only one with allies there, then you couldn't be more wrong," Han Li said with a smile. Immediately thereafter, he swept a sleeve through the air to release a ball of golden light, which transformed into purplish golden Jin Tong. "Go on, give them the release they deserve," Han Li said. Jin Tong turned toward the 5 oncoming devils with a cold expression, then stomped a foot into midair, and countless streaks of invisible sword chi erupted out of his body in a frenzy. After that, it transformed into a vast expanse of golden light that fused as one with the sword chi before sweeping toward the 5 devils. The most powerful-looking one of the 5 ghostly devils raised its arms and plunged its ghostly claws directly into the storm of sword chi, upon which its fingers and close to half of its arms were instantly shredded by the golden sword chi. These ghostly devils were able to oppose top-grade treasures with their bodies alone, but they were no match for the peerlessly sharp golden sword chi. The ghostly devil was naturally quite stunned by this, and it immediately twisted around before vanishing into thin air in a flash. Meanwhile, the other four devils opened their mouths to expel balls of black lightning in a frenzy, quickly combining as one to form a sea of black lightning that clashed with the golden light. Thus, black chi and golden light intertwined, and it was as if there were two giant beasts battling with all their might. All of a sudden, around a dozen thick streaks of sword chi erupted out of the golden light in a line, tearing a giant gash into the black chi en route toward the five ghostly devils. However, right at this moment, the devil that had just disappeared re-emerged at the gash that had just been torn open. At this point, its arms and hands had completely regenerated, and it immediately opened its mouth to expel a crimson bone bead. Not only was the golden sword chi that struck the bead instantly repelled, it was tainted a crimson color before crumbling away. This bead had the incredible effect of corrupting other treasures, and it quickly released countless bursts of black chi that inundated both itself, as well as the ghostly devil that had just appeared. The sword chi was unable to completely sever the black chi, but the black chi was also unable to repel the sword chi. The two clashed over and over again, but neither side was able to gain the upper hand, and thus, an impasse ensued. This seemed to have been a complex process, but everything had actually taken place in nothing more than the blink of an eye. Netherworld Monarch Menace faltered slightly at the sight of Jin Tong, and he was stunned that his five ghostly devils were only just barely able to oppose Jin Tong's sword chi. What kind of spirit beast is this? Its aura seems rather familiar. Do you think I'd tell you? Han Li asked in a nonchalant manner. HMPH, looks like I'll just have to beat you until you tell me. An enraged look appeared in Netherworld Monarch Menace's eyes as he made a hand seal, and he immediately began to swell in size, while the black chi behind him intertwined to form a massive ghostly face that was around an acre in size. The ghostly face opened its mouth to release a long streak of black light, which somehow covered a distance of over 1,000 feet in a flash to reach Han Li. In response, Han Li remained still on the spot, but a barrier of divine essence-effused light appeared before him amid a burst of spatial fluctuation. Much to Han Li's astonishment, the gray light barrier was instantly shattered as soon as it was struck by the streak of black light, following which the streak of light rapidly wound itself 7 or 8 times around Han Li's body, forming a giant cocoon around him. A layer of flames erupted over the surface of the cocoon, and it transformed into a giant fireball. However, Netherworld Monarch Menace didn't stop there. Instead, he summoned a giant inky black axe that was several tens of feet in length and releasing a foul odor, and the axe was slashed toward the fireball like lightning. A sharp screeching sound rang out, and a peerlessly sharp axe projection appeared overhead before striking the center of the black cocoon with unerring accuracy. A loud metallic clang sounded, and the spear projection was repelled before shattering into countless pieces. Immediately thereafter, a thunderous roar erupted from within the fireball, and 6 giant furry hands tore the cocoon apart. At the same time, a burst of scorching silver flames surged out of the massive hands, then swooped down to sweep up all of the surrounding flames, following which Han Li was revealed. At this moment, he was in his giant golden ape form with 3 heads and 6 arms, and he was appraising Netherworld Monarch Menace with a cold expression, while silver flames were burning all over his body. Netherworld Monarch Menace was also looking back at Han Li with a hint of bewilderment in his eyes, clearly surprised that his last attack hadn't managed to harm Han Li at all. In the next instant, Han Li's 6 hands clenched up into tight fists, and he unleashed countless golden fist projections, all of which transformed into balls of golden light. Netherworld Monarch Menace harumphed coldly upon seeing this, and he let loose another deafening roar to create the same warped light barrier. Thus, the golden balls of light struck the light barrier in a torrential barrage. But on this occasion, all of the fist projections instantly exploded upon clashing with the light barrier, releasing bursts of fearsome power. In the face of such an unrelenting barrage of fist projections, the light barrier was beginning to crack at a rate that was discernible even to the naked eye. Finally, the light barrier was completely shattered, and all of the fist projections hurtled directly toward Netherworld Monarch Menace. However, Netherworld Monarch Menace made no attempt to evade. Instead, he raised his giant black axe, and it immediately transformed into a massive bone shield amid a flash of black light. At the same time, the giant ghostly face behind Netherworld Monarch Menace blurred before abruptly appearing on the bone shield, then opened its cavernous mouth to release a burst of fearsome suction force. All of the oncoming golden fist projections were swept up by this burst of suction force and drawn into the mouth of the ghostly face, upon which they completely vanished amid flashes of golden light and a burst of incessant rumbling. Chapter 2383, Mighty Ghostly Chi. After devouring all of the golden balls of light, Netherworld Monarch Menace began to chant an incantation, then opened his mouth to release a ball of green blood essence that vanished into the ghostly face in a flash. The ghostly face on the shield suddenly burped, rapidly swelling in stature to resemble a small mountain, before biting viciously toward Han Li's direction. The entire sky abruptly dimmed, and it was as if the ghostly face were about to devour the entire mountain. "Devour heaven and earth," Han Li exclaimed as his expression changed drastically. However, he then raised his 6 hands in unison amid a low roar, releasing a flurry of golden runes that transformed into 6 balls of shimmering golden light. The 6 balls of light instantly teleported over to the mouth of the ghostly face before flying into it in a frenzy. A string of dull thumps rang out as the balls of golden light exploded into countless runes, which instantly formed a golden vortex. The vortex quickly swelled to around an acre in area, and it released countless golden runes amid a string of Buddhist chants. The ghostly face's giant mouth closed around the golden vortex, and both began to glow bright as their powers clashed, creating a mass of intertwining black and golden light that flashed incessantly between the ghostly face and the golden vortex. A serious look appeared on Netherworld Monarch Menace's face for the first time upon seeing this, and he suddenly took a step forward, upon which he abruptly vanished on the spot. In the next instant, spatial fluctuations erupted above Han Li, and a giant black foot came stomping down viciously from above alongside a series of balls of crimson light. Han Li's eyes narrowed slightly as he thrust a hand upward in retaliation, and a scintillating golden sun exploded, releasing a burst of enormous power that stopped the giant foot cold in its tracks. However, in the next instant, the Netherworld Monarch Menace fully appeared up above, and at this point, he had transformed into a giant that was over 10,000 feet tall. He lashed out with both arms amid a burst of sinister cackling, and his hands transformed into a pair of dark clouds that swooped down from above with devastating might, releasing a nauseating odor and burst of crimson flames. As opposed to being alarmed by this attack, Han Li was elated to see that Netherworld Monarch Menace was attacking with his physical body. He immediately made a hand seal, upon which he swelled to over 1,000 feet tall, and countless silver formations of different sizes appeared all over his body. At the same time, 6 different types of golden weapons appeared in his hands amid a flash of golden light before being swung upward in retaliation. An earth-shattering boom rang out across the entire heavens, and Han Li shuddered as he was forced back a couple of steps, while his 6 golden weapons were completely shattered. As for Netherworld Monarch Menace, both of his arms had been reduced to clouds of blood mist, and it seemed that he had come out second best from that clash. However, this injury seemed to have completely stimulated his bloodlust, and instead of retreating, he took a step forward with vicious might. Countless black patterns appeared on his calf, then exploded into balls of black chi that transformed into a black dragon that was several hundred feet in length before pouncing directly toward Han Li. At the same time, all of the sharp spikes on his suit of armor shot forth as streaks of crimson light, and he opened his mouth to release a crimson cloud, from within which countless thumb-sized black insects emerged. Each insect was around the length of a chopstick with black exoskeletons and crimson wings. Their mouth appendages were as sharp as scissors, and they swooped down toward Han Li as fast as lightning. Despite this fearsome barrage of attacks, Han Li remained completely unfazed as he rubbed his hands together before raising them upward, releasing 6 bolts of golden lightning. The bolts of lightning transformed into 6 golden pythons, which surrounded the black dragon in a flash. Thus, a fierce battle ensued between the black dragon and the 6 pythons. At this moment, the sharp crimson spikes also reached Han Li, who took a deep breath with his 3 mouths in unison before blowing out gusts of fierce azure winds. As soon as the gusts of azure wind swept up the crimson spikes, the latter were sent flying in all directions, completely losing track of their target. However, the swarms of black insects dealt with the azure wind very intelligently, skirting around it after dividing themselves up into around a dozen groups before continuing to fly toward Han Li. Han Li paid no heed to this, and only once the insects were less than 100 feet away from him did the layer of scorching silver flames reappear over his body, then swelled to encompass all of the nearby insects in a sea of flames, instantly incinerating them into ashes. Right at this moment, a burst of black chi appeared behind Han Li, and a thin ghostly claw plunged through the silver flames and protective spiritual light around his body like lightning, then grabbed toward a certain spot on his back. All of a sudden, a silver formation on Han Li's back flashed, and the ghostly claw struck it with unerring accuracy. The claw seemed to be imbued with incredible power, forcing Han Li to stumble forward. However, the silver formation on his back remained completely unscathed. As Han Li was stumbling forward, he swiveled around to lash out with a golden blade projection, which sliced the black chi behind him in half to reveal a monkey-like beast that was around 3 feet tall. This beast had a single horn on its head and a pair of white pupil-less eyes. A thin gash ran all the way from the top of its head to its groin, and blood was flowing profusely out of the gash. The monkey-like beast had been sliced in half by the blade projection. However, Han Li didn't stop there. Instead, he lashed out with his 5 other hands to release countless arcs of golden lightning, which formed a golden net before swooping down from above. All of a sudden, the 2 halves of the beast's body transformed into 2 bursts of black chi that shot forth toward either side, passing through the golden lightning net in a flash as if it didn't even exist. Han Li was quite surprised to see this, and he couldn't help but falter slightly. Taking advantage of this opportunity, the 2 bursts of black chi hurtled back in retreat before combining as one again to form the monkey-like beast. The beast gave Han Li a cold look before instantly appearing beside the head of the giant netherworld monarch menace, then self-detonated into a burst of black chi that surged up the giant's nostril. As a result, the giant's missing arms were instantly regenerated. That's a second nascent soul. No, it would be more accurate to call it a second soul, Han Li remarked as a cold light flashed through his eyes. You must be quite knowledgeable to have identified it right away. Indeed, this second soul was refined using the remains of an ancient beast. Not only is it completely silent in movement, it possesses strength superior to even my own. What are those formations on your back? The fact that it was able to withstand a full-force attack from my second soul tells me that it's not an ability from the lower realms. Netherworld Monarch Menace chuckled coldly as he shook out his pair of new arms. Why don't you come and find out for yourself? Han Li harumphed coldly in response. At this point, the 6 golden lightning worms had already torn the black dragon apart, and the giant ghostly face and the golden vortex had destroyed one another after a prolonged struggle. Netherworld Monarch Menace looked up at the 2 light barriers overhead and suddenly chuckled. With that ability at your disposal, I won't be able to pose a threat to you through conventional means. Hee, it looks like I'll have to use my trump card. As soon as his voice trailed off, he let loose a shrill cry, and the 5 golden ghostly devils that were still locked in battle with Jin Tong suddenly disengaged before flying back toward Netherworld Monarch Menace as 5 golden skulls, then vanished into his giant body in a flash. The 5 skulls then appeared on the giant's neck amid a flash of golden light, before chanting different incantations in vastly contrasting voices. As the chanting grew louder and louder, countless black spirit patterns suddenly appeared over Netherworld Monarch Menace's body, before transforming into thousands of fist-sized ghostly faces. All of the faces were extremely lifelike, and wore a diverse range of different expressions with their eyes, covering every single inch of the giant's body. Immediately thereafter, Netherworld Monarch Menace made a hand seal. All of the ghostly faces slowly opened their eyes amid a burst of sinister cackling. All of a sudden, a streak of golden sword chi appeared out of thin air without any warning before revolving around the giant's head like lightning, then appeared several hundred feet away in a flash, revealing itself to be Jin Tong. Immediately thereafter, the giant's head rolled down from his body, and Jin Tong immediately released countless streaks of invisible sword chi that converged toward the giant's headless from all directions, aiming to instantly tear it into shreds. Chapter 2384, Power of 1,000 Ghosts. Right at this moment, the 5 golden heads on the giant's neck opened their mouths to let loose a chorus of sharp screeches. As a result, the space around the giant's headless body warped and twisted, and a shimmering golden light barrier appeared. The barrage of invisible sword chi struck the light barrier in a torrential storm, only to be repelled and completely unable to harm the light barrier. At the same time, one of the ghostly faces on the giant's body vanished, and a new head quickly appeared in the place of the decapitated one amid a burst of black chi. Jintong remained completely expressionless upon seeing this, but a cold light suddenly flashed through its eyes, and spatial fluctuation erupted on either side of the giant, following which two streaks of sword chi that were over 100 feet in length surged toward him in a crisscross formation. The seemingly indestructible light barrier was instantly vanquished, and the giant was decapitated once again. However, a second ghostly face quickly vanished from the giant's body, and yet another head appeared in the place of the newly decapitated one before cackling in a derisive manner. "I have the power of 1,000 ghosts within my body, which means that I have 1,000 lives. Even if you kill me hundreds of times, it won't do anything. Now then, let me see if you can withstand an attack from the power of 1,000 ghosts." As soon as his voice trailed off, all of the ghostly faces on Netherworld Monarch Menace's body suddenly converged toward his arms, following which he made a grabbing motion with both hands in unison. Countless bursts of black chi surged forth, and all of the ghostly faces peeled themselves off the giant's arms before putting on extremely menacing expression. All of a sudden, the pair of massive claws detached themselves from the giant's arm before swelling to around an acre in size, and one of them shot forth toward Jintong, while the other hurtled directly toward Han Li. Jintong's expression changed slightly for the first time at the sight of the oncoming giant claw, and it immediately vanished into thin air amid a flash of golden light. However, the giant claw made a grabbing motion, and the countless ghostly faces nearby warped slightly before 5 black chains shot out of the claw's fingertips. The 5 chains suddenly vanished into thin air, then abruptly pulled back, and Jintong was wrenched out of space amid a burst of violent spatial fluctuations, with the 5 black chains wound tightly around its body. The giant claw immediately gripped onto Jintong, before attempting to crush Jintong in its grasp. All of the ghostly faces around the claw suddenly began to howl loudly, then exploded into bursts of black chi that instantly inundated both Jintong and the giant claw. However, in the next instant, 2 streaks of invisible sword chi that were over 100 feet in length emerged within the black chi before destroying the giant claw and the black chains, following which Jintong sprang out of the black chi as a ball of golden light. However, the countless ghostly faces were reformed within the black chi in a flash, and the giant claw was instantly manifested between them before hurtling toward Jintong again. The sword chi being released from Jintong's eyes were extremely powerful, but it seemed that the ability couldn't be used too many times, and after it was eradicated by the giant claw a few more times, Jintong was forced to retreat as it fought. Meanwhile, the massive claw gave chase without any inhibitions by relying on its immortal body, and a tense chase ensued. At the same time, Han Li was facing the other giant claw, but instead of taking evasive measures, his massive body swelled further in size, and silver formations appeared all over his skin as he lashed out toward the giant claw with his 6 huge golden fists, aiming to destroy the claw with the prowess of his physical body alone. Having activated his 100 Meridian Refinement mantra to its maximal extent, his 6 golden fists were powerful enough to release 6 golden tornadoes that caused the space in their wake to warp and twist violently, presenting an awe-inspiring sight to behold. In the face of such fearsome attacks, the giant claw didn't slow down in the slightest, and all of the ghostly faces around it began to cackle while opening their mouths. As soon as the 6 golden tornadoes reached the massive claw, they were split apart and devoured by the ghostly faces, which swelled drastically in size before releasing a series of black threads out of their mouths, instantly forming a black net. Upon being struck by the 6 giant golden fists, the black net only swayed slightly, but wasn't torn apart, and it took advantage of the opportunity to encompass Han Li's entire body. However, right at this moment, scorching silver flames erupted from Han Li's body, forming a fiery cloud that forcibly kept the black net at bay. Meanwhile, the giant claw reached into the sea of flames without any hesitation, while the black threads being released by the ghostly faces managed to prevent the silver flames from approaching. Thus, the massive claw pierced through the fiery cloud without any impediment before grabbing toward one of Han Li's 3 heads. Even before it had actually reached the head, 5 bursts of black chi surged out of the claw's fingertips, forming 5 black chains that descended from above. Han Li harumphed coldly upon seeing this, and he raised his 3 heads before opening his mouths in unison, releasing 3 gusts of fierce azure winds that blew the black chains off course. Immediately thereafter, the azure wind reached the giant claw, and a string of crisp clangs rang out as the wind transformed into several tens of small azure swords that attacked the claw in a frenzy. However, the giant claw seemed to be indestructible with the support of the power of 1,000 ghosts, and the small azure swords were only able to leave countless faint white marks on its surface. A dull thump rang out as the massive claw finally crushed the protective spiritual light around Han Li, only to be kept at bay by several silver formations that had appeared on the head that it was reaching toward. Countless ghostly faces reappeared on the surface of the huge claw, and a burst of chanting rang out, following which the 5 fingers of the claw abruptly thickened, and the power it was releasing increased by over tenfold. In the face of such devastating power, even the silver formations were beginning to groan and creak, looking as if they could shatter at any moment. Han Li heaved a faint sigh upon seeing this, and he immediately laid a hand onto the top of his own head, which opened up to release several balls of light of different colors. Each ball of light contained the projection of a different true spirit being, and they evolved through the air before plunging into Han Li's body in a flash. In the next instant, a string of loud booms rang out, and a series of golden scales appeared over Han Li's body amid a flash of purplish golden light. At the same time, a short horn emerged from each of his 3 heads, following which the nearby world's origin chi converged before being funneled toward Han Li in a frenzy. It was clear that Han Li wouldn't be able to defeat Netherworld Monarch Menace through conventional means, so he had finally unleashed his 3rd Nirvana transformation. After completing the transformation, Han Li let loose a thunderous roar before grabbing onto the giant claw with 2 of his hands, then crushed the claw with ease. Immediately thereafter, he opened his mouth to release a burst of golden light, which swept up the net up above before drawing it into his mouth to be devoured. Netherworld Monarch Menace was extremely alarmed to see this, and he hurriedly pointed a finger in that direction. Countless ghostly faces immediately appeared around Han Li once again, and all of them adopted enraged expressions before quickly chanting an incantation. Thus, another giant claw quickly began to take shape among the ghostly faces. "Do you really think you can keep using this trick over and over again?" Han Li harumphed coldly as he lashed out with his 6 fists in unison. Letter 1D5F3, letter 1D5FF, letter 1D4 1E, letter 1D556, letter 1D604, letter 1D5F2, letter 1D68C, letter 1D560, letter 1D55E. Spatial fluctuations erupted all around him, and 6 golden vortexes appeared out of thin air before revolving rapidly on the spot, releasing extremely fearsome suction force and even faint traces of the power of laws. All of the ghostly faces only had a chance to let loose a few anguished wails before they were completely swept into the vortexes. Netherworld Monarch Menace was astonished to see this, and he immediately made a hand seal, upon which the ghostly faces that had disappeared from his body reappeared. They then opened their eyes to release green threads of light, converging to form a massive pillar of light that was as thick as a water tank, before instantly covering a distance of several thousand feet to reach Han Li. A fierce look appeared on Han Li's face, and he reached a massive scaled hand toward the oncoming pillar of light. An earth-shattering boom rang out as the green pillar of light was stopped cold in its tracks by Han Li's hand, then exploded as a giant ball of light. Once the dust settled, Han Li's hand was revealed again, and it was completely unscathed. Even though he had endured countless battles in the past, Netherworld Monarch Menace couldn't help but be flabbergasted to see this. Just as he was about to unleash some other type of ability, Han Li suddenly made a grabbing motion with one hand, and a dark green longsword immediately appeared amid a flash of green light, then instantly swelled to over 100 feet in length. Han Li then gripped onto the hilt of the sword with all 6 of his hands, before slashing it through the air with a solemn expression. Chapter 2385, Buddha Bone Monarch. Several bands of purplish golden light appeared over Han Li's body, and the world's origin chi he had just absorbed surged into the giant green sword in his grasp in a frenzy. A row of silver runes lit up on the blade, and a green crescent sword projection that was over 1,000 feet in length swept forth before vanishing into thin air. "That's a profound heavenly treasure," Netherworld Monarch Menace immediately exclaimed upon sensing the law fluctuations being released by the giant green sword, and he hurriedly made a hand seal to try and unleash some type of evasive technique, but it was already too late. In the next instant, spatial fluctuations erupted above Netherworld Monarch Menace, and the green crescent reappeared before descending toward him amid a burst of fearsome power of laws. The space around him immediately tightened, and his entire body was immobilized by the power of laws, making him feel as if he had been sealed within a massive ice mountain, rendering all struggles completely futile. The profound heavenly spirit/sword was far more powerful than Netherworld Monarch Menace had anticipated, and none of the profound heavenly treasure he had seen in the past could compare with its power. I concede, remove the restrictions, Netherworld Monarch Menace yelled in a horrified manner, and the two light barriers over-encompassing the entire mountain instantly vanished, but the green crescent still continued onward without pause. After attempting to use several types of secret techniques to escape, all to no avail, Netherworld Monarch Menace was finally growing desperate. Power of 1,000 ghosts, explode. All of a sudden, the ghostly faces on his body turned a bright red color before exploding amid a string of resounding booms. A cloud of blood mist immediately erupted forth in all directions, greatly nullifying the power of laws in the surrounding area. At the same time, Netherworld Monarch Menace's body rapidly shrank down to its original size, and he struggled free from the binding power of laws before rising up into the air. And Lee gave a cold harumph upon seeing this, and he suddenly lashed out like lightning with his giant green sword. This was an extremely ordinary-looking slash, but the front half of the giant blade vanished as soon as the attack was unleashed. Netherworld Monarch Menace had just evaded the green crescent, but right at this moment, a semi-transparent giant blade projection appeared out of thin air beside him amid a flash of green light, then flashed through the air and sliced his body in half, completely disregarding the protective crimson flames burning over his body. Netherworld Monarch Menace let loose an agonized howl, but he still didn't panic as he made a hand seal, upon which his lower body instantly exploded into a cloud of blood mist. His upper body was enveloped within the blood mist, then vanished on the spot amid a resounding boom. A hint of mockery appeared on Han Lee's face upon seeing this, and he pointed a finger toward that direction, upon which the green crescent also exploded into countless dark green threads that instantly pierced through the space where Netherworld Monarch Menace had just vanished. Another anguished cry rang out amid a burst of violent spatial fluctuations, and the top half of Netherworld Monarch Menace's body reappeared. However, it was currently riddled with countless holes, resembling a discarded rag. Even so, Netherworld Monarch Menace was still alive, and several powerful treasures were released from his severely ravaged body. The treasures quickly converged around him, and he fled toward another direction. However, Han Lee had already used his profound heavenly spirit/sword, so he naturally wasn't going to allow his opponent to escape. After flying for just over 10,000 feet, golden light suddenly flashed in front of Netherworld Monarch Menace, and Han Lee appeared in complete silence before thrusting a gigantic golden palm toward his opponent. An earth-shattering boom rang out as Netherworld Monarch Menace's defensive treasures, and what remained of his body were easily destroyed by the golden palm. All of a sudden, two balls of black chi shot out of his ruined body before fleeing as quickly as they could in different directions. Han Lee's brows furrowed slightly upon seeing this, and he swept a finger toward one of the balls of black chi, releasing a streak of azure sword chi that sliced the creature within the black chi in half. It was none other than that monkey-like beast. Immediately thereafter, countless arcs of golden lightning sprang out of the azure sword chi, instantly incinerating the beast into ashes. Without the support of Netherworld Monarch Menace's magic power, this second soul was unexpectedly fragile and was unable to instantaneously regenerate as it had done before. Just as the other ball of black chi was about to escape, a burst of light flashed on either side of it, and a cow-headed serpentine beast stumbled out of Balk Chi amid an anguished wail. However, it only managed to rush forward a few more steps before its body completely fell apart, and countless bursts of black chi erupted forth amid a string of ghostly cries. Right at this moment, Jin Tong appeared up above amid a flash of golden light, then raised its hands to release countless streaks of invisible sword chi that eradicated all of the black chi within the span of just a few breaths. Thus, Netherworld Monarch Menace was well and truly dead. Letter 1D4F, Letter 1D4FB, Letter 1D486, Letter 1D658, Letter 1D498, Letter 1D4E, Letter 1D4FF, Letter 1D658, Letter 1D4F8, Letter 1D662. At the same time, the lid of one of 10 bluestone coffins situated in an underground hall in another world suddenly exploded, and a shadowy figure abruptly stood up within the coffin as he roared in a furious voice, "Who dared to kill my body? Don't let me run into you. Otherwise, once I forge a new body, I'm going to torture you for all of eternity." The shadowy figure then drifted out of the stone coffin before quickly flying out of the hall. Having reverted back to his human form, Han Li was holding a fist-sized red bead in one hand. The bead was enshrouded within a layer of black qi, and its surface was riddled with countless black spots. The black spots appeared to be completely unremarkable, but after inspecting them with his spirit eyes, Han Li discovered that these were countless miniature ghostly faces. This bead was something that Han Li had secured from the destroyed soul of Netherworld monarch Menace, and he murmured to himself with a faint smile, "Interesting. This is something that would be worth some careful examination." The bead was then stowed away with a flick of his wrist, following which he turned toward the nearby mountains. All of the other mountains were currently still enshrouded under light barriers, indicating that his battle was the first one to conclude. With that in mind, Han Li cast a meaningful gaze toward the mountain in the middle, before flying toward the mountain on his left. If he recalled correctly, that was the mountain that Wen Xinfeng had chosen, and with his assistance, she should be able to take care of her opponent in short order. After just a few flashes, he appeared above the light barrier, and he made a grabbing motion to summon a miniature black mountain, which quickly swelled drastically in size before being hurled downward. At the same time, he made a hand seal to release an azure sword projection that was over 1,000 feet in length, which came crashing down with devastating might. Jin Tong also followed suit, unleashing countless streaks of invisible sword qi that rained down in a torrential storm. The two light barriers above the mountain were obviously no match for Han Li and Jin Tong's attacks, and they were quickly shattered to reveal the scene down below. As Han Li expected, a fierce battle was still underway on this mountain, and it had been divided into two battlefields. On one battlefield, Wen Xinfeng's flying sable had swelled to close to 10,000 feet in size and was clashing ferociously with a two-headed giant lizard of around the same stature. The flying sable was flapping its wings incessantly with arcs of silver lightning covering every single inch of its body, while the two-headed lizard was releasing crimson flames out of one mouth and surging black qi out of the other. Both creatures were extremely resilient, and even as they clashed over and over again, neither side could gain the upper hand. As for the other battle that was taking place, it was quite a peculiar one. On one side, Wen Xinfeng was seated within a green bamboo forest while making a hand seal with her eyes closed. Her entire body was enshrouded within a five-colored robe of light, and there was a white formation plate hovering above her head, from within which countless silver runes were being released. Several thousand feet away from her was a massive sea of blood that was over 100 acres in size, within which was an inky black lotus platform, upon which sat a complete human skeleton. The skeleton was completely covered in blood, and there were even some parts of its body where the flesh hadn't completely peeled away. However, it was making a hand seal with one hand, and carrying a crimson bowl with its other hand, just like a normal person. Behind the skeleton was a vast expanse of golden light that was around an acre in size with boundless golden flames burning within it. Strangely enough, after unleashing their respective secret techniques and treasures to protect itself, the skeleton was also seated in a completely still manner on the Black Lotus platform, just as Wen Xinfeng was. Han Li's expression changed slightly upon seeing this, and he cast his gaze toward a certain area in between the two with blue light flashing within his eyes. As a result, that seemingly empty area suddenly transformed into two worlds where the direct opposites, life and destruction, coexisted. Chapter 2386, Netherworld Monarch Chapter Reincarnation. One world was filled with skeletons formed by black qi wreaking havoc within a sea of crimson flames, while the other world was filled with lush greenery and countless five-colored butterflies. Two worlds were seemingly divided by an invisible line, and they were clashing incessantly. Either the crimson flames were reducing the trees and butterflies to ashes, or the trees and vines were growing thicker and stronger before sweeping up countless skeletons as fertilizer. The clash between the vastly contrasting worlds was creating a giant vortex at the center that was revolving rapidly, but it was making no sound, as if it were nothing more than an illusion. Impressive, both of them have begun to master spirit domains. Even though their grasp is very elementary, the average Grand Ascension stage being would definitely be powerless against them. Jin Tong, go and kill that lizard. Leave this netherworld monarch to me, Han Li instructed. Jin Tong nodded in response, before flying toward the two-headed giant lizard down below as a streak of golden light. As for Han Li, he transformed into a giant cunning that was over 1,000 feet in length with countless arcs of silver lightning flashing over his body, then plunged down from the heavens. In the instant that the light barriers were shattered, both Wen Zhenfeng and the skeleton had immediately noticed Han Li and Jin Tong's arrival. Wen Zhenfeng was naturally ecstatic, while the skeleton's heart sank slightly, and now that Jin Tong and Han Li were getting involved in this battle, it knew that he couldn't just sit around passively any longer. Thus, green flames lit up within its eyes, and it tossed the bowl in its hand high up into the air. The bowl released countless crimson runes in a frenzy, then swelled to the size of a small mountain before hurtling directly toward Jin Tong. At the same time, a thunderous roar rang out within the sea of blood below the skeleton, following which around a dozen giant crimson worms emerged before hurtling directly toward the huge cunning. Meanwhile, the skeleton made a rapid string of hand seals before pointing a finger toward the two clashing worlds from afar. All of a sudden, the world that was filled with crimson flames abruptly exploded without any warning, forming an enormous crimson sun that released a sea of flames toward the opposing world. In the face of this self-destructive attack, the trees and vines within the green world warped and twisted violently, and most of the five-colored butterflies instantly exploded. Wen Zhenfeng was quite alarmed to see this, and she hurriedly made a string of rapid hand seals while flicking a series of incantation seals toward the green world. As a result, she was unable to work with Han Li to attack the skeleton together. The enormous suction force released by the Crimson Bowl forced Jin Tong to stop cold in its tracks, and in retaliation, it immediately released two streaks of translucent light out of its eyes. The two streaks of light struck the bowl in a crisscross formation, and two huge holes were immediately punched into the bottom of the bowl. After being dealt such a heavy blow, the bowl began to rapidly shrink like a punctured balloon, before being sliced up into countless pieces by the two streaks of translucent light at Jin Tong's behest. After that, Jin Tong sprang and fused as one with the two streaks of light to form a thick pillar of light that reached the two-headed giant lizard in a flash, then quickly revolved around it like a bolt of translucent lightning. The giant lizard knew that it was in great peril, but the giant flying sable prevented it from being able to take any evasive measures, so it could only release a crimson barrier of flames around its own body. Unfortunately, the flame barrier proved to be completely ineffective, and its body was sliced up into several sections. However, the giant lizard possessed immense life force, and bursts of black chi surged out of the cross-sections of its wounds, attempting to reconnect the severed parts of its body. Right at this moment, the giant sable pounced toward it and locked its front limbs around a section of the lizard's body before biting viciously into it. The giant lizard's body thrashed violently, but it only took a few mouthfuls for the massive sable to devour that chunk of its body before pouncing toward another section in an excited manner. Meanwhile, Jin Tong reappeared nearby and appraised the unfolding scene with a cold expression, displaying no intention of stepping in. Thus, a short while later, the two-headed lizard was completely devoured by the giant sable. Elsewhere, Han Li was facing the dozen or so crimson worms, and he flapped his wings to release thick bolts of golden lightning from his own body, forming a lightning net that descended toward the opposing worms. A hint of derision appeared in the skeleton's eyes upon seeing this. The sea of blood down below was refined from 81 types of filthy blood, and the worms it manifested were extremely powerful. They couldn't compare with true worms, but they certainly weren't far away. As such, it was downright delusional to think that a mere net of lightning would be able to vanquish them. These thoughts had only just crossed the skeleton's mind when a string of anguished roars rang out, and it hurriedly looked over in alarm to find that the crimson worms had been completely destroyed by the net of lightning in an instant. Thus, without any further impediment, Han Li continued to swoop down from above with unstoppable might. "That's divine devilbane lightning," the skeleton exclaimed as it quickly thrust a hand downward, upon which the river of blood below him rumbled before rising up into the sky as a giant wave. At the same time, the Black Lotus platform down below transformed into a ball of black light that encompassed the skeleton before vanishing on the spot. By the time Han Li's golden lightning vanquished the crimson wave, the skeleton was already nowhere to be seen. Upon determining that there was no way that it could oppose Han Li and Wen Zhenfeng at once, The skeleton had been extremely decisive and instantly fled. Without the support of its magic power, the Crimson Sun was quickly destroyed by Wen Zhenfeng, following which she rose to her feet with a smile on her face. "Thank you for your assistance, Brother Han. If you hadn't stepped in, it would have definitely taken far longer for an outcome to be reached in this battle. However, we can't let that Buddha Bone monarch get away. If it collaborates with the other ghostly monarchs, then our fellow Taoists will be in severe peril." "Of course, let's give chase right away," Han Li replied as he reverted back to his human form. At this moment, Jin Tong and the giant sable returned to Han Li and Wen Zhenfeng in a flash, and the sable's stomach was bulging from its recent meal. Thus, the duo didn't waste any time and immediately rose up into the air with their respective spirit beasts. They could already see that the fleeing Buddha Bone monarch had flown onto the mountain in the middle, and the golden light above its head was releasing a torrent of devilish flames onto the light barrier down below. The two light barriers only managed to resist for a brief moment before they were destroyed, following which the Buddha Bone monarch descended onto the mountain down below. Wen Zhenfeng and Han Li immediately gave chase as two streaks of light, and after just a few flashes, they also arrived above the same mountain. However, the scene down below came as quite a surprise to both of them. Contrary to their expectations, there was no sign of any battle taking place on the mountain. Instead, a refined middle-aged man was seated across from Bai Ying, and the two of them were playing a game of Go on a board positioned on a pristine white stone table. The board was of a shimmering golden color, while the stones were black and white in color. Bai Ying and the middle-aged were both staring at the board in silence, and it seemed that they had reached a critical juncture in the game. The Buddha Bone monarch was standing obediently behind the middle-aged. Han Li and Wen Zhenfeng exchanged a surprised glance with one another, then descended from above and made their way over to Bai Ying, while Jin Tong and the flying sable vanished up their sleeves. "I'm glad to see you too, fellow Taoists. I was slightly concerned, but it looks like I can rest assured now," Bai Ying said with a smile as he turned toward Han Li's duo. "What's going on here, Brother Bai?" Wen Zhenfeng asked as her brows furrowed slightly. After a brief clash, fellow Taoist reincarnation discovered that our cultivation arts directly suppress one another, so an outcome can't be reached unless we're willing to put our lives on the line. Thus, we decided to decide the outcome of our battle through this game. Of course, if the other battles are decided first, then there would be no need to finish this game, Bai Ying explained. "Are you the one who killed Netherworld Monarch Menace?" Netherworld Monarch Reincarnation asked as he cast his gaze toward Han Li. "I did. Do you intend to avenge him?" Han Li asked in a calm manner. "HMPH, it's his fault for losing the battle. Why would I go out of my way to avenge him?" Netherworld Monarch Reincarnation replied. Seeing as fellow Taoist Han has already slain Netherworld Monarch Menace, the victory naturally goes to him. Fellow Taoist Buddha Bone has fled from his mountain, so this counts as a loss against him as well. "Do you have any objections, fellow Taoist Reincarnation?" Bai Ying asked as he placed a stone onto the board. "I agree with that assessment. However, seeing as all three of them have appeared here, I can't allow them to leave and meddle in the remaining battles. I'll have to ask everyone to stay here until the outcomes of the other battles are decided," Netherworld Monarch Reincarnation said. "All right, I accept this arrangement on their behalf," Bai Ying agreed after a brief moment of contemplation. Chapter 2387, Outcome. Han Li and Wen Zhenfeng were both rather perplexed about why Bai Ying had agreed so readily to Netherworld Monarch Reincarnation's request, but they didn't raise any objections and stood off to the side in silence. The Buddha Bone monarch also remained silent as he glanced at Han Li's duo with his fiery green eyes. A smile appeared on Netherworld Monarch Reincarnation's face upon hearing Bai Ying agree to his request, and he lowered his head to focus on the game at hand again, then placed another stone on the board after a prolonged period of thought. Bai Ying also began to focus on the game upon seeing this. Han Li cast his gaze toward the board in an intrigued manner, but after just a short while, he quickly shook his own head in a resigned manner. His skills in the game of Go were quite average, but he was still able to identify that this game was astonishingly complex and definitely not one that he could make sense of. Bai Ying and this Netherworld Monarch Reincarnation were definitely the best Go players he had ever seen. It was no wonder that both of them were confident enough to decide the outcome of their match through a game of Go. With that in mind, Han Li's gaze strayed over to Wen Zhenfeng, upon which he discovered that she was also appraising the board, but her brows were slightly furrowed, and it seemed that she was able to better understand the current game situation better than he did. A wry smile appeared on Han Li's face upon seeing this. Each move made by Bai Ying and Netherworld Monarch reincarnation would be punctuated by a long pause, and in the blink of an eye, close to an hour had passed by. All of a sudden, a burst of loud rumbling rang out in the distance, and the two light barriers encompassing the first mountain from the right were destroyed, and two people emerged before flying one after another toward the mountain where Han Li and the others were situated. After identifying the two figures flying toward them, Wen Zhenfeng's expression changed slightly as she remarked, "It seems like fellow Taoist Lei has been defeated." Han Li also cast his gaze toward that direction to find that the silver-armored man's suit of armor was currently riddled with holes, and half of his body had been reduced to a mangled mass of flesh and blood. There were also several inky black ghostly heads biting onto his exposed flesh, and his face was very pale. The person that was pursuing him was a beautiful young woman who appeared to be 17 years of age. She was wearing a resplendent purple robe, but was surrounded by hundreds of ghostly heads and had gusts of yin wind surging around her. After just a few flashes, the two of them arrived in the air above the mountain where Han Li and the others were situated, and they were also rather taken aback by the sight that greeted them down below. However, the silver-armored man immediately returned to his senses before descending from above, while the young woman only followed suit after a brief hesitation. At the same time, the ghostly heads around her vanished as if they were nothing more than illusions. "Are you all right, Brother Lei?" Bai Ying asked. "I'm fine, Brother Bai, thanks for your concern. However, the outcome of my battle was a disappointing one. I've already done everything in my power, but this woman's abilities were too much for me to handle, so I was forced to flee," the silver-armored man replied with a wry smile. "It's all right, fellow Taoist Han and Fairy Wen have already won their battles. The 10 monarchs of the Netherworld all possess different levels of power anyway, so I never expected us to win all 5 matches. You should prioritize on recovering from your injuries," Bai Ying said in a warm voice, seemingly not very disappointed by the silver-armored man's defeat. "Fellow Taoist Han and Fairy Wen have already defeated their opponents. That's a pleasant surprise. In that case, I can rest assured," the silver-armored man said as he cast a surprised glance toward Han Li and Wen Zhenfeng, then took a seat nearby with his legs crossed. Soon, arcs of silver lightning emerged to completely inundate his entire body. Meanwhile, Netherworld Monarch Reincarnation exchanged a few words with the young woman to learn about what had transpired during her battle, following which his smile became slightly more pronounced. "Netherworld Monarch Reincarnation, your side has earned a victory as well, but according to our prior agreement, these two must also remain on this mountain and are forbidden from disrupting the final battle," Bai Ying said. "Of course. By the way, I forgot to tell you this earlier, but the one battling on the final mountain is the 7 Orifices Monarch, who ranks in the top 3 among our 10 monarchs. His powers are far superior even to my own. If his opponent is unable to defeat him, then there's a very good chance that they'll be killed rather than simply defeated," Heavenly Monarch Reincarnation said with a smile. Bai Ying's expression changed slightly upon hearing this, but it then quickly returned to normal as he said, "Is this 7 Orifices Monarch really that powerful? I'm not convinced. Fellow Taoist Zhu Sha can rank among the top 10 most powerful beings in our realm, so perhaps it's your fellow Taoist who will be slain instead." "Is that so? In that case, let's wait and see," Netherworld Monarch Reincarnation chuckled. Thus, the two of them began to focus on the game again. Time quickly passed by, and a day and a night passed in the blink of an eye. Even Han Li was beginning to wonder what was happening with the final battle, and what was even more exasperating to him was that there was still no sign of a conclusion being reached in Bai Ying and Netherworld Monarch Reincarnation's game. Each move that was made by the two of them was taking several times longer than before, and just as Han Li thought that the wait would continue, Bai Ying's expressions changed slightly as he cast his gaze toward the final mountain. Han Li's heart stirred slightly upon seeing this, and he also swept his spiritual sense toward that direction. As a result, he was greeted by the sight of a human-scorpion hybrid monster flying out after destroying the 2 light barriers above the mountain. The monster's upper body belonged to a young man, while its lower body was that of a giant reddish-black scorpion. It was holding a strange rippling black sword in one hand, and a shriveled-up head that was several times smaller than a normal human head in its other hand. The eyes of the head were tightly shut, and its face was filled with incredulity, as if its owner were still unable to believe that he had been defeated even in the moment directly preceding his decapitation. Even though the head had been mummified, Han Li was still able to immediately identify it as belonging to Zhu Sha. This vastly renowned powerful being of the Blood Sky continent had been slain in battle by his opponent. At this point, Bai Ying and the others had also identified the head, and their expressions darkened significantly upon seeing this. The monster appeared expressionlessly above everyone after just a few flashes, but he displayed no intention of descending from above. Looks like the Seven Orifices monarch secured the victory in the end. Having said that, your companion must have also been extremely powerful to have lasted so long, Netherworld monarch reincarnation chuckled. I didn't think that fellow Taoist Zhu Sha would actually be killed, but it seems that we've still secured the ultimate victory, Bai Ying said in an expressionless manner. Indeed, even though the Seven Orifices monarch won his battle, there's already no point in continuing in our game. We concede a 3-2 defeat in this match, Netherworld monarch reincarnation replied in a calm voice. Bai Ying's eyes narrowed slightly upon hearing this. Then according to our agreement, letter 1D5F3, letter 1D69B, letter 1D5F2, letter 1D556, letter 1D6A0, letter 1D6AT, letter 1D6AC, letter 1D698, letter 1D46. We'll only take 40% of this small world's resources and leave the rest to you. If you're still not satisfied with that, we can repeat this match over and over again until one side can gain a crushing victory, Netherworld monarch reincarnation said. There's no need for that. Our trade guild is already extremely pleased with 60% of this small world's resources. However, the death of fellow Taoist Zhu Sha is a heavy loss for us, Bai Ying replied. At our level, everyone has a few life-saving measures set up. He came to participate in this match, so I'm sure he made preparations in advance, and it's hard to say whether he actually perished, Netherworld monarch reincarnation said in a nonchalant manner, making no mention of Netherworld monarch Menace's demise. I certainly hope so. It's a pity that I wasn't able to actually spar with you, fellow Taoist. I hope we'll get another opportunity in the future, Bai Ying replied with a nod. I'm actually more interested to face fellow Taoist Han someday. The fact that Netherworld monarch Menace wasn't even able to get away from him indicates that his powers most likely aren't inferior to those of the Seven Orifices monarch, Netherworld monarch reincarnation said as he cast a meaningful gaze toward Han Li. You're far too kind, fellow Taoist. I was very fortunate in my battle, Han Li replied in an indifferent manner. Netherworld monarch reincarnation didn't have any intention of staying any longer, and he rose to his feet as he said, seeing as the outcome has been decided, we'll be leaving now, and we'll arrange to vacate the required territory in this small world right away. Bai Ying and the others naturally made no effort to keep him, and thus, the 4 Netherworld monarchs flew toward the White Bone Mountain in the distance. The 4 monarchs flew into the mountain, and the black chi up ahead immediately began to retreat. Looks like those Netherworld monarchs are planning to keep their promise. In that case, I won't have to use the backup measures I prepared. Fellow Taoist Zhu Sha has already perished. It would be truly unfortunate if another fellow Taoist were to meet their demise here, Bai Ying sighed as he also rose to his feet. Brother Bai, has fellow Taoist Zhu Sha really perished? With his powerful blood Tao abilities, surely he'd at least be able to ensure self-preservation. I've heard of a rumor that fellow Taoist Zhu Sha cultivated an extremely fearsome clone that's identical to him in appearance and also possesses comparable powers, Wen Zhenfeng said in a concerned manner. Chapter 2388, Plan to Trap the Devil. A hint of surprise flashed through Bai Ying's eyes upon hearing this, and after a brief pause he replied, You're correct. What perished was just a clone of fellow Taoist Zhu Sha, not his true body. I only recently received news that fellow Taoist Zhu Sha encountered some unforeseen circumstances during an adventure, and even though he's safe now, he sustained some injuries, which is why he sent this clone to participate in this match in his stead. This clone was refined by fellow Taoist Zhu Sha for tens of thousands of years. I still don't know how I'm going to answer to him now that it's been destroyed in this battle. At the very least, this is still much better than having fellow Taoist Zhu Sha's true body perish. I'm sure you'll be able to smooth things over by offering some extra compensation to brother Zhu Sha, the silver-armored man said as the silver lightning around him faded, and he rose to his feet. At this moment, his complexion was looking far better than it had previously. I certainly hope so. Are you really all right, brother Lei? Do you require any assistance from me? Bai Ying asked in a concerned manner as he glanced at the black ghostly heads that were still clinging firmly to the silver-armored man's shoulders. I'm fine. It's just that these ghostly heads can't be removed right away. I'll just have to take some time to refine them using my bonded true flame when I get back. Having said that, I did lose a few vital life-saving treasures during the battle, the silver-armored man replied with a wry smile. Fellow Taoist Lei, what abilities did your opponent possess to reduce you to such a sorry state? Han Li asked. That woman's other abilities aren't that remarkable, but she possesses a secret technique that can allow her to manipulate ghostly shadows, and it's extremely troublesome. Those ghostly shadows possess no form or substance, and they can instantly adhere to her body to grant her the same properties, thereby preventing her from sustaining any damage from my attacks. I did everything in my power to counter this secret technique, all to no avail, so I could only concede, the silver-armored man replied in an indignant manner. It seems like these cultivation arts of the infernal realm really are quite unique. It's understandable that you were defeated seeing as you're only facing these strange abilities for the first time, Brother Lei, Wen Xinfeng consoled in a gentle voice. The silver-armored man merely shook his head in silence. Now that the outcome has been decided, there's no need for us to remain here any longer. Let's return to the stronghold. In the coming days, we'll be able to see whether those ghostly beings are actually going to abide by the agreement, Bai Ying said as he stowed the go-board away, then rose up into the air, followed closely by everyone else. A month later, the calm surface of an extremely secluded lake suddenly parted, and a giant black arc emerged from within it. After just a few flashes, the arc vanished into the distant sky. A series of armed puppets were patrolling the arc from one end to another, and within a secret chamber that was riddled with restrictions on the bottom level of the arc, Han Li was seated on a futon, appraising a silver jade slip in his hand in silence. Shortly after the conclusion of the match against the infernal realm, Bai Ying had fulfilled his promise, taking Han Li to the Trade Guild headquarters tome library and allowing him to pick an immortal secret technique. Han Li had chosen the origin astral barrier, and the decision had been made following an introduction of the secret technique delivered by Bai Ying. With his provenance true devil arts and profound heavenly spirit/sword, Han Li was confident in his own offensive prowess, so he wasn't very interested in the offensive immortal secret techniques available. The name of the origin astral barrier sounded like quite a simple one, but it was actually a special secret technique that allowed one to form a protective barrier using the world's origin chi. He didn't know how powerful it was going to be, but it was an immortal secret technique, so it was definitely no ordinary cultivation art. However, there was a slight problem. Han Li raised the jade slip before pointing a finger at it, and a faint buzzing sound rang out as the jade slip released a series of golden runes, which quickly formed a panel of text. Letter 1D453, letter 1D4C7, letter 1D626, letter 212F, letter 1D638, letter 1D626, letter 1D450, letter 1D45C, letter 1D4C2. These golden runes were flashing incessantly, as if they possessed a certain degree of spiritual nature, and they were none other than golden seal text runes. And Li inspected the body of text through narrowed eyes for a while, before shaking his head with furrowed brows. Even though he recognized all of the runes, the collective body of text was very difficult to decipher, so this was definitely not something that he could completely interpret in a short time. With that in mind, Han Li pointed a finger at the jade slip again, and the body of golden text disappeared. After a moment of contemplation, Han Li flipped a hand over to summon another crimson jade slip, which he gently stroked with a hint of elation in his eyes. This was the jade slip he had obtained from the Heavenly Cauldron Palace as part of Taoist Tianding's inheritance. He had only intended to replicate a copy of the jade slip, but Fairy Ice Soul had given the jade slip to him outright as a gesture of gratitude. This jade slip contained the lightning refinement secret technique that Taoist Tianding had used during his time in the spirit realm. Han Li possessed divine devilbane lightning, which was a type of top-tier lightning, so this secret technique was perfect for him. In comparison with the origin astral barrier, this cultivation art was far easier to comprehend. Thus, Han Li pressed the jade slip against his own forehead and began to study it in silence. During the past year or so, he had already interpreted most of the secret technique. By his estimates, he would reach complete mastery in about half a year, by which time he could begin refining his divine devilbane lightning. As he studied the secret technique, The black arc began to fly toward a predetermined direction. Meanwhile, Bai Ying was seated on a chair in a hall at the bottom of the giant lake, pondering something with a contemplative expression. There were 4 trade guild elders standing before him, including Wen Zhenfeng, who said, "The Blood-Bone sect must have acted quite quickly, considering they've already tracked down the culprit." Indeed, I heard that several major sects, led by the Blood-Bone sect, assembled a group of 12 Grand Ascension stage beings, and they're preparing to set up a devil-trapping formation on the route that the culprit is traveling. They plan to lure the culprit into that formation before slaying him together. For some reason, they sent an invitation to me to participate in their plan. By the way, I heard that fellow Taoist He of the Skyfall Valley and Mistress Ling Yun of the Myriad Curse Mountain have also been invited, Bai Ying said. HMPH, their objective is obvious. The Blood Dao sects have always been quite wary of our trade guild, so they most likely want to make a display of power to our trade guild during the battle. Otherwise, why would they invite you even after Elder Jun has already been sent to join them? A green-robed elderly man harumphed coldly. In any case, the major Blood Dao sects are the premier powers on our continent, so we can't just turn them down. Brother Mew, how have the Skyfall Valley and Myriad Curse Mountain reacted to these invitations? Wen Zhenfeng asked with furrowed brows. According to my sources, both fellow Taoist He and Mistress Ling Yun have accepted their invitation, the green-robed elderly man replied. In that case, I'm obligated to accept as well. Otherwise, the reputation of our trade guild will be affected. Prepare a teleportation formation. I'll set off in the next few days. I'm also curious to see what powers the culprit possesses to have enabled him to perform a blood sacrifice of such enormous proportions. Bai Ying finally decided after a moment of contemplation. In that case, we'll defer to your better judgment, Brother Bai, but be careful, Wen Zhenfeng cautioned with a serious expression. Rest assured, I prepared some life-saving measures for the match against the infernal realm. Seeing as I didn't get a chance to use them, they should be enough to keep me safe no matter what perils I encounter there, Bai Ying replied with a smile. Wen Zhenfeng and the others were greatly reassured upon hearing this. Thus, Bai Ying and the elders discussed some matters regarding the usage of the resources from that small world before everyone else departed, leaving Bai Ying to sit alone in the hall. As soon as everyone left, Bai Ying's smile immediately faded and was replaced by a brooding expression. The formation plate was shattered, so I should be facing a stern tribulation soon. I had thought that the tribulation would definitely have been the match against the infernal realm, but I've already emerged from that event unscathed. Is the tribulation still yet to come, or has it already been resolved through the precautionary measures I took? Bai Ying murmured to himself as he fell into deep thought again. Half a month later, Han Li appeared in the air above a stretch of wilderness, overseeing a group of puppets, which were carefully cleaning a dilapidated altar that had been buried deep underground. At the same time, Bai Ying arrived in a massive city on the other side of the Blood Sky continent, accompanied by several guards from the Trade Guild. In the belly of a small mountain situated in a mountain range not far away from the city, the 6-winged frost centipede and the ice phoenix were seated on a pair of futons, meditating to recover their energy. Every once in a while, the 6-winged frost centipede would pull out a small vial to drip a drop of unknown liquid into his mouth, then close his eyes again to refine the medicinal power within the spirit liquid. The 2 of them were completely unscathed, but the exhaustion on their faces was very apparent. It was no wonder that they were looking so worse for wear. Anyone would be severely depleted in both magic power and spiritual sense after being pursued by an insurmountable enemy for so long. How much longer do you think we'll be able to last, fellow Taoist? The Ice Phoenix suddenly asked as she opened her eyes. Chapter 2389, Ambush. I didn't think that a true immortal would chase us so persistently like a mad dog. However, rest assured, he won't be able to do anything to us before my spirit liquid runs out. The 6-winged frost centipede replied in a resentful manner as he also opened his eyes. It's all because you goaded him with those insulting words that he's so persistent in pursuing us. The Ice Phoenix harumphed coldly. You don't know anything. If I hadn't made him lose his cool with my insults, there's no way we would have been able to successfully escape from him using that secret technique. If worse comes to worst, then we'll have to leave this continent and return to the Tian Yuan continent. Surely he wouldn't continue to pursue us onto another continent, the 6-winged frost centipede said in a cold voice. The Ice Phoenix's eyes lit up slightly upon hearing this. Leaving the Blood Sky continent is actually not a bad idea. That man descended onto the Blood Sky continent from the true immortal realm, so he must have something important to do here. Once we escape to the Tian Yuan continent, there's a good chance that he'll let us go. That would naturally be ideal, the six-winged frost centipede replied with a nod. Thus, after resting for close to another day, they didn't dare to remain in the mountain any longer and shot out as two streaks of light to continue fleeing from their pursuer. However, the two of them had only just emerged from the mountain when spatial fluctuations erupted all around them, and four humanoid figures appeared, all of which were giving off extremely fearsome auras. The two of them were naturally quite alarmed by this, and they immediately drew to a halt before inspecting the four people who had appeared around them, upon which they discovered that the group was comprised of 2 men and 2 women, all of whom were at the grand ascension stage. "Are the 4 of you here for me?" the six-winged frost centipede asked as his eyes narrowed slightly. "We are indeed here for you, fellow Taoist," an azure-faced man wearing a crimson robe replied. The six-winged frost centipede's expression changed slightly upon hearing this, and he said in a cold voice, "Oh, you really are here for me. I don't recall making enemies of any of you during my time on the Blood Sky continent. Please don't misunderstand. We're not here to target you. Instead, we'd like to request your assistance," the azure-faced man replied with a hint of a smile on his face. The six-winged frost centipede was extremely frustrated after being pursued for so long, and the arrival of these 4 grand ascension stage beings finally tipped him over the edge as he flared with rage. "This is how you request assistance from people. What if I refuse?" If these people couldn't give him a satisfactory response, then perhaps he really would lash out against them. In any case, with his powerful movement technique, he would be able to easily escape with the Ice Phoenix even if he couldn't defeat these 4 in battle. The azure-faced man's expression remained unchanged, and he replied, "Please remain calm, fellow Taoist. The proposal we're bringing to you is immensely beneficial for both sides. You're currently being pursued by someone, right?" The six-winged frost centipede's heart stirred slightly upon hearing this. "What do you mean by that?" "It's very simple. We want you to lure your pursuer to a certain place. As long as he dares to pursue you to that place, it will become his final resting place. Wouldn't you agree that this is mutually beneficial?" the azure-faced man asked. "You want to ambush him?" The six-winged frost centipede was stunned to hear this. "That's right. However, if we want to accomplish this, then we'll require your cooperation," the azure-faced man replied. The Ice Phoenix was also astonished to hear this proposal. "Do you know who we're being pursued by? You think the 4 of you can stand a chance?" the six-winged frost centipede asked with a cold smile. "Who says the 4 of us are the only ones involved in this? He, regardless of who he is, the fact of the matter is that he slew countless living beings on our Blood Sky continent for his blood sacrifices. Even if he's a true immortal, there's no way we're going to let him leave the Blood Sky continent alive," the azure-faced man said as a proud look appeared in his eyes. "Haha, that's very reassuring to hear. All right, I'll lend you my assistance," the six-winged frost centipede agreed. The azure-faced man was rather befuddled by the six-winged frost centipede's reaction, but the important thing was that he had agreed to this proposal. Thus, the azure-faced man swept a sleeve through the air to release a jade slip and said, "This jade slip contains the location that you need to lure your pursuer to. As long as you can do that, he'll be as good as dead. I'm sure you won't disappoint us, fellow Taoist." "Rest assured, my own life is on the line here, so I definitely won't screw this up," the six-winged frost centipede replied in a calm manner as he caught the jade slip. "Good. In that case, we wish you the best of luck. We still have some matters to attend to, so we'll be taking our leave now," the azure-faced man said as he cupped his fist in a parting salute. After that, the 4 of them quickly vanished on the spot amid a burst of spatial fluctuations, while a contemplative look appeared on the six-winged frost centipede's face. "Are you really planning to act as a lure for them?" the Ice Phoenix asked. "It would be well worth acting as a lure if we can get rid of this major threat. At the very least, it's far less risky than trying to flee back to the Tian Yuan continent," the six-winged frost centipede replied. "You saw that man kill those grand ascension stage beings. Do you really think those people are a match for him?" The Ice Phoenix was still very skeptical. "You heard what they just said. Even if he's a true immortal, they're not going to let him leave the Blood Sky continent alive. They must have prepared a lot of backup measures considering how confident they are. It's just that they have no idea that they really are dealing with a true immortal. If they want to use me as bait, then let them pay the price." The six-winged frost centipede replied with a derisive smile. What if that madman manages to escape from that trap? He'll definitely realize that you were the one who lured him into it, and when that time comes, he'll most likely put an end to this game of cat and mouse once and for all. If he gets serious, we'll be in far more trouble than we are now. The Ice Phoenix was still quite concerned. I've considered this already. Even if that man really is a true immortal, most of his power would be sealed away in this realm. Even if he does manage to escape from a trap set by so many grand ascension stage beings, he'll definitely emerge with severe injuries. Under those circumstances, it would take him an indefinite amount of time just to recover, so he'll have no choice but to stop pursuing us. As such, this is the best opportunity for us to escape from him. It's a little risky, but the risk is definitely worth taking, the six-winged frost centipede replied. On this occasion, the Ice Phoenix seemed to have been convinced, and she finally nodded in agreement to this plan. All right, seeing as you have no objections, let's see where this ambush is being set up, the six-winged frost centipede said as he pressed his jade slip against his own forehead, then injected his spiritual sense into it. Moments later, the six-winged frost centipede stowed the jade slip away and said, "Let's go. I've learned the location and that madman should be about to get here soon." He then rose up into the air and flew away as a streak of light, and the Ice Phoenix could only follow suit after heaving a faint sigh. Meanwhile, the black-robed young man was approaching atop his rainbow cloud countless kilometers away. At the same time, Han Li opened his eyes with an elated expression as he stood in front of an ancient altar. "I've found it. This altar has shown me the coordinates of the entrance to the small spirit sky." "Is that true, Senior Han?" Zhu Gyur was ecstatic to hear this. "It is. It was worth coming all the way here in search of these ancient altars," Han Li replied with a smile, and the massive round light barrier in the air above the altar immediately vanished at his behest. "Senior Han, now that we know the location of the entrance, are we going there right away?" Zhu Gyur asked in an excited manner. "There's no rush. According to the map of the Blood Sky continent, the entrance to the small spirit sky is no longer on the continent itself. Instead, it's situated deep in the ocean quite far away from the continent," Han Li replied with slightly furrowed brows as he referred to the map of the Blood Sky continent in his memory. Zhu Gyur's smile immediately faded upon hearing this. "What? The entrance is under the sea. It must be really hard to find then." "Don't worry, I've already anticipated such a situation. Hua Shi will be counting on you," Han Li replied with a smile before turning to Patriarch Hua Shi. "Rest assured, Master Han, the underwater world is no different from the world on land to me, so I definitely won't disappoint you," Patriarch Hua Shi replied in a respectful manner. Han Li nodded with a pleased expression upon hearing this, then released a burst of light to sweep up his two companions before rising up into the air. After just a few flashes, the trio returned to the giant black ark, which immediately sped away. 7 days later, a masked man was standing on a sand dune in an extremely obscure desert, looking into the distant sky in an expressionless manner. The area below the sand dune had already been dug out, and tens of thousands of elite Blood Dao disciples were gathered there, but they didn't make so much as a single sound. Beneath their feet was a super formation that encompassed close to half of the entire desert, and there were thousands of top-grade spirit stones embedded onto its surface. Furthermore, there was a group of special disciples holding formation plates seated near the formation core. In the sky above, which was concealed behind a vast blanket of dark clouds, another super light formation had also been set up, but it was completely concealed by an extremely profound restriction. Within that super light formation, around a dozen grand ascension stage beings from the Blood Sky continent were waiting patiently for something. Chapter 2390, Heaven and Earth Extreme Formations. Time slowly passed, but nothing out of the ordinary appeared in the surrounding area. Finally, a burly red-haired man in the light formation ran out of patience and transmitted his voice toward a portly elderly man. "Why isn't he here? Could it be that he changed his mind and decided not to follow our plan? We didn't deploy anyone to spy on them as we were worried that the culprit would notice." "Rest assured, Brother Chi, we wouldn't have set up this trap if we weren't fully confident in it. I don't know why the culprit pursued those two for such a long time, but the results of our investigation indicate that he's displayed no intention of giving up. As long as that six-winged frost centipede doesn't make it too obvious, he'll definitely be able to lure the culprit into this trap," the elderly man replied with a warm smile. "That's very reassuring to hear. Speaking of which, just how fearsome is the culprit behind the blood sacrifices? Not only have the 12 of us been assembled, even these heaven and earth extreme formations and the sacred treasure of the blood bone sect, the yellow wind scroll, are being used. That treasure and these two formations alone should be enough to refine the culprit alive. Why are our services still required? The red-haired man asked in a curious manner. I'm not too sure about that, but there must be a reason why the fellow Taoists who assembled us are being so cautious. Setting everything else aside, that man has already killed 3 Grand Ascension stage fellow Taoists and has sacrificed countless living beings without any inhibition, so he does deserve this grand treatment, the portly man replied. I'm rather curious about where that man came from. Could it be that he's been cultivating in seclusion for countless years, or perhaps is a powerful being from another realm? The red-haired man speculated. There's no need to think about such things. Regardless of where he came from, his actions are inexcusable, and our blood Tao sects definitely can't allow him to continue living in this world. Otherwise, our reputation would be swept to the ground, the portly man replied with a solemn expression. That's true. I've heard that Bai Ying of the He Lion Trade Guild, Mistress Ling Yun of the Myriad Curse Mountain, and fellow Taoist He of the Skyfall Valley have also been invited as spectators. With their participation, there's no way that man will be able to survive, the red-haired man said. There's no way those 3 would join forces to oppose the same enemy. Besides, with all of us here, there won't be any chance for them to get involved, the portly man replied, to which the red-haired man nodded with a contemplative expression. Meanwhile, 4 Grand Ascension stage beings were standing together in the hall of a shimmering golden pagoda. The pagoda was situated in a giant city countless kilometers away from the desert, and the 4 of them were all appraising a white light screen between them. The screen was displaying everything taking place in every corner of the desert, and one of the 4 Grand Ascension stage beings was none other than Bai Ying. The other 3 were comprised of a middle-aged man in a scholar's robe, a middle-aged woman in a colorful dress, and a crimson-robed man with eyes that resembled those of a falcon. All 4 of them were appraising the scenes unfolding on the light screen with calm expressions, displaying no intention of conversing with one another. Half a day later, a streak of light suddenly appeared on the edge of the desert before flying deeper into the desert at an astonishing speed. The streak of light was being pursued by a rainbow cloud, from which an icy male voice rang out. You've truly enraged me now, and I'm growing tired of this game of cat and mouse, so I'll end it here and now. As soon as the voice trailed off, the rainbow cloud transformed into a bolt of rainbow lightning that sped up drastically. Thus, the streak of light and rainbow lightning quickly sped through close to half of the desert and arrived at its center. The streak of light faded, and a snowy white 8-winged centipede was revealed alongside a beautiful woman in a silver palatial dress. As soon as the centipede landed on the ground, it transformed into a white-robed young man with golden and silver patterns on his face, who immediately turned to look back into the distance. A rumbling thunderclap rang out, and the bolt of rainbow lightning appeared before hurtling down toward the duo. The 6-winged frost centipede's pupils contracted slightly upon seeing this, and he immediately transformed into his 8-winged centipede form before continuing to flee. Right at this moment, a burst of rumbling suddenly rang out, and the earth tremored violently as a burst of invisible suction force erupted forth from underground. The bolt of rainbow lightning was stopped cold in its tracks by this unexpected burst of suction force, revealing a sickly black-robed young man. It was none other than the true immortal Ma Liang. Countless pillars of light of different colors erupted out of the sand down below and extended straight up into the heavens. The earth continued to tremor as a super formation that stretched as far as the eyes could see slowly emerged, following which countless blood Tao disciples appeared before arranging themselves into a profound formation, then began to activate the formation treasures that they were holding. Meanwhile, the sky lit up, and an invisible restriction fell away like a light veil, revealing a giant light formation that encompassed the entire sky. The light formation then began to slowly descend from above, and powerful energy fluctuations instantly filled the entire space. Standing between the 2 enormous formations, Ma Liang was made to look like an insignificant ant. Right at this moment, the 12 Blood Tao Grand Ascension stage being emerged from the light formation before surrounding Ma Liang in a flash, appraising him from afar. Even though he was immobilized in midair, Ma Liang remained completely unfazed to see this, and a burst of light erupted from his body, following which a sharp tearing sound rang out, and he instantly regained freedom. "You're all quite courageous to be ambushing me. With so many of you present, you must intend to kill me here." Ma Liang chuckled coldly at the sight of the 12 Grand Ascension stage beings around him. "HMPH, you dared to sacrifice hundreds of millions of living beings on our continent. Surely you already predicted that this day would come." A Grand Ascension stage enshrouded within a cloud of crimson chi harumphed coldly. "I did anticipate that this would happen, but I didn't expect you to join forces with these two. I've grown sick of this game of cat and mouse anyway, so I'll kill all of you, then slay those two myself," Ma Liang said as he glanced at the six-winged frost centipede and the ice phoenix, who had already backed away into the distance. "What insolence! Looks like he won't give up unless death is staring at him in the face. There's no need to waste more time with useless chatter. Let's take him down," a brocade-robed elderly man yelled. As soon as his voice trailed off, around a dozen crimson flying swords immediately flew out of his body. The other Grand Ascension stage beings also sprang into action upon seeing this, and treasures came flying out in a frenzy. At the same time, a burst of buzzing rang out from the two giant formations, and countless runes emerged on their surfaces as they began to slowly revolve. The light formation in the sky quickly transformed into a giant mirror that obscured the entire heavens. The surface of the mirror was entirely silver, and countless silver threads rained down from it amid a rumbling boom. Meanwhile, balls of white light emerged from the formation on the ground, instantly inundating all of the people in the formation, before transforming into a massive seal character. As soon as the character took shape, bursts of law fluctuations immediately swept toward Ma Liang from all directions. However, Ma Liang merely smiled in response, and in the next instant, an extremely fearsome aura erupted out of his body. At the same time, a series of purplish golden chains abruptly appeared over his body, all of which were releasing scintillating light. The entire center of the desert dimmed significantly, and all of the world's origin chi surged toward a certain point in a frenzy. At the edge of the desert, the masked Grand Elder of Blood Bone Sect, Xiao Ming, had appeared in midair. His expression immediately changed as he sensed the devastating aura erupting from the extremely far distance, and he murmured to himself with a grim expression, "Even the heaven and earth extreme formations are unable to contain him. Looks like we have no choice but to use that treasure." As soon as his voice trailed off, he opened his mouth to release a yellow scroll, which slowly unfurled in front of him to reveal the map of a desert. The desert on the map was identical to the desert before Xiao Ming, and he pointed a finger at the map, upon which the desert on the map suddenly began to writhe and squirm as if it had sprung to life. At the same time, the sand on the surface of the actual desert itself began to surge in a rhythmic manner, as if to resonate with the changes taking place on the map. "Let there be wind," Xiao Ming yelled as he pointed a finger at the map again. The edge of the desert on the map immediately warped and blurred, and wisps of faint yellow mist emerged before slowly drifting upward. At the same time, clouds of yellow mist appeared in front of Xiao Ming before instantly transforming into a series of tornadoes that were quickly increasing in number, forming one row after another. Thus, a yellow wall of wind that was taller than the eyes could see rapidly took shape, and the same scene was being replicated on the outskirts of the entire desert. "Go," Xiao Ming commanded as he swept a sleeve through the air, and the walls of wind converged toward the center of the desert from all directions, sweeping up ferocious sandstorms that were only increasing in ferocity.